I died the day before my 23rd birthday, poisoned by my mother's bowl of caring, sweet soup. After being reborn, I stared at the tree shadows swaying in the storm outside my window, listening to the familiar footsteps approaching my door. This time, I made sure to lock the door in advance and hide the voice recorder. Then her voice pierced through the door. "Cora, I've brought you some fruit," this time, clutching my asthma inhaler. I smiled soundlessly at the surveillance screen. "Mom. This time it's your turn to suffocate. I died the day before my 23rd birthday, not from a terminal illness, not from an accident, but from a bowl of syrup my own mother gave me. Mom, the online exam is the day after tomorrow. I'm begging you, please don't come into my room during the test." This was the 100th time I'd reminded her, my voice bordering on pleading. "Ms. Grace waved her hand impatiently. All right, enough already, it's just some silly exam." I bit my lower lip and fell silent, quietly retreating to my tiny room that was less than 8 square meters. The calendar on the wall showed May 12, 2023, the day of the online written exam for public institution recruitment. This was my 3rd time applying. I had missed the cutoff by mere decimal points in the previous 2 interview rounds, so I spent a solid 6 months preparing this time. On exam day, I woke up early and double-checked that the door was bolted, with my computer, internet connection, and webcam all functioning properly. At exactly 9 o'clock, the exam began. The questions were easier than I had expected, and I was writing at lightning speed. Just as I was working on the last major question, a familiar set of footsteps sounded outside the door. "Cora, I've made you some pear and rock sugar soup. Come open the door." My heart started racing, my fingers frozen above the keyboard. The online exam rules clearly stated that no one else was allowed to enter or appear within the camera's view during the test. "Mom, I'm in the middle of an exam," I whispered urgently. "Just 1 minute, your throat's been bothering you. Have something to soothe it." The sound of the doorknob being forcefully turned made my blood run cold. I frantically clicked the submit button, but it was too late. The lock bolt snapped open with a click, and my mother burst in, her face glowing. Carrying that damned bowl of sugar water, she deliberately walked in front of the camera to set the bowl down. "Mom, get out now," I screamed, pushing her away. A message from the proctor popped up on the screen. "Candidate 1178, irregular activity has been detected. Your test results are invalidated." I slumped in my chair, my vision going dark. Just like that, 6 months of hard work went down the drain. "It's just an exam, no need to make such a fuss," my mother said with a dismissive pout. "Now drink your sweet soup." I shot up from my seat, tears blurring my vision. "Do you have any idea how long I've been preparing for this? How many times have I told you not to come in, after I kindly made you sweet syrup? You still blame me, you ungrateful wretch." Mother's voice suddenly sharpened. "What was the point of raising you all these years?" The familiar tightness seized my chest. My mouth gaped open, but no air would come. An asthma attack was setting in. The medicine was on the nightstand, just 3 steps away, but my legs wouldn't obey me. "Medicine, I need my medicine." I collapsed to my knees, pointing weakly toward the nightstand. My father rushed in at the sound, but just stood in the doorway frowning. "What's the act this time? Always putting on a show, such a drama queen," my mother added with a cold sneer. My vision began to darken, and the last thing I heard was my mother saying, "Just leave her. She'll snap out of it. Jules will be here any minute," and I made his favorite braised ribs. Jules, oh, Jules, my cousin, my maternal uncle's son. Since my mother only had me, a daughter, the ingrained preference for sons over daughters has been etched into her mindset since childhood, so her whole life has revolved around my uncle, and now his son has become her sole reliance. My daughter doesn't hold a candle to her cousin in her heart, because she believes only her cousin can provide for them in their old age. My father thinks the same way. Since my father grew up without parents or siblings, my uncle's family became his only relatives. The moment darkness swallowed me, it suddenly hit me. Jules had also applied to this institution. There was only one opening for the position, the medical report stated. Respiratory failure due to acute bronchial asthma attack. If only the medication had been administered in time. If only they'd gotten to the hospital sooner, but no one came to my rescue. When I opened my eyes again, I was sitting at my desk, with the computer showing 8:37 p.m. on May 11, 2023, my phone screen lit up with a voice message from my mom. Cora, don't stress about tomorrow's exam, I'll make you something delicious. I tapped into my cousin's moments. And the latest post was a selfie with the caption, "Good luck on your exam tomorrow." The location shows he's in this city, not the neighboring one where he works. The fragments of memory suddenly clicked into place. On the day of the exam in my past life, my mother did mention that my cousin was coming. As for Jules applying to the same institution, I only found out after the written exam, my fingers trembling uncontrollably. I flipped through the applicant list and found his name on the third page. Jules, applied position, Comprehensive Affairs Office, Municipal Development and Reform Commission. That was exactly my first choice. My mother did it on purpose, to give her nephew one less competitor. She was willing to ruin her own daughter's future and even indirectly caused my death. Given a second chance at life, I won't let history repeat itself. My eyes were fixed on the phone screen, fingers trembling slightly above the keyboard. Mom's old Huawei phone sat on the kitchen counter while she was downstairs taking out the trash. This was my first chance to look through her phone. What could the passcode be? I took a deep breath and tried entering my cousin's birthday, 0423, the screen unlocked. She'd used my cousin's birthday as the passcode. Not mine, not my father's, not even her own. A dozen unread messages glowed on the WeChat icon. I tapped it open. The top chat window was labeled, "Jules, my love, Auntie, I'm counting on you tomorrow, don't worry. I'll definitely get inside during that girl's exam. If she passes, my chances will be slim, with me here. How could she ever take your spot? You're the hope of our Wang family." The last message was sent 10 minutes ago. "Tomorrow I'll pretend to care and bring her some sweet soup. You just focus on the exam." My nails dug deep into my palms, but I felt no pain, so it was crystal clear. My mother and cousin were in cahoots to manipulate me. No, it was more like my mother took the initiative, all for the sake of her precious nephew getting into college. "Cora, what are you doing standing there?" My mother's voice came from behind me, making me jump and nearly drop my phone. Quickly closing the WeChat interface, I turned around with a forced smile. "Just getting some water, Mom." She gave me a suspicious look as she took her phone back. "You have an exam tomorrow. Get to bed early." I lowered my head and murmured, afraid she might read something in my eyes. Back in my room, I locked the door and leaned against it, gasping for air. The familiar tightness in my chest returned, but I didn't reach for the medicine. Let my body remember this pain, remember the taste of betrayal. The desk lamp cast a dim, yellowish glow on the family photo, taken on my 5th birthday. In the photo, my mother sat in the center holding my cousin, while I stood beside my father like an outsider. When I was 7 and running a 40 degrees Celsius fever, my mother said, "It's normal for kids to have a fever." Yet she took an overnight train to a neighboring city to deliver medicine to my cousin who had a cold. At age 10, I ranked first in my grade, but my father remarked, "Good grades in elementary school don't matter for girls." That same year, when my cousin ranked 10th in his class, the whole family bought him the latest gaming console. At 18, during college entrance exams, I wanted to apply to a prestigious 985 university in another province. But my mother forced me to enroll in a local second-tier college, arguing, "It's not safe for a girl to go so far away." My cousin scored 50 points lower than me, yet he ended up attending a third-tier college out of province, with tuition fees jointly covered by his family and mine. At 23, while taking my 3rd civil service exam, my mother sacrificed my opportunity to help my cousin. I walked up to the full-length mirror and stared at my pale reflection. Dark circles hung heavily under my eyes, and fine lines had formed around my lips from years of clenched jaws. This is Cora, who has suffered for 23 years under the weight of son preference ideology. A faint rustling sound drifted in from outside the window. "So that's how it is." I cracked open the curtain and saw my mother standing by the flower bed downstairs, talking on the phone. "Jules, it's all taken care of, don't worry. There's no way that girl will pass the exam. You're the one who carries our family's hopes." The night breeze lifted the hem of her coat, and under the streetlight, her expression was so vivid, a stark contrast to the indifference she showed when speaking to me. I gently closed the window and returned to my desk. Since fate has given me a second chance, I will not repeat the same mistakes. I turned on the computer and began mapping out tomorrow's plan. First, just locking the door isn't enough. I need to wedge a chair under the handle. My mother has a spare key. Second, prepare a backup phone with the recording function on, and hide it behind the bookshelf. If she forces her way in, at least there will be evidence. Third, keep the asthma inhaler within easy reach. I can't let what happened last time happen again. Fourth, should I explain the situation to the exam proctor in advance? No, that would just look suspicious. The worst thing you can do before an online exam is make excuses in advance. Fifth, 2. My pen nib pierced a hole through the paper. The core issue is, even if this exam goes smoothly, will mother and cousin really let it go? They definitely have more tricks up their sleeves. Cora, open the door. My father's knocking snapped me out of my thoughts. I was reborn. I quickly put away my notes and unlocked the door. It was unusual for my father to seek me out like this. What's up, Dad? He stood at the doorway holding a stack of papers. Your cousin sent these review materials. He wants you to look them over tonight. I took the stack and glanced through it. Every page was filled with error-ridden study notes, some mistakes so glaring they seemed intentional. If I actually studied using these, I'd definitely fail tomorrow's exam. Thanks, Dad. I'll look at them in a bit, I said with an obedient nod. My father turned to leave, looking satisfied, but then paused and said, Your cousin also applied for the National Development and Reform Commission this time. Did you know? Just found out. He's a year older than you, so his opportunities are dwindling. My father gave me a meaningful look. You're a girl. You'll get married eventually. Any decent job will do. I didn't say a word, just clenched the stack of useless papers tighter. As soon as my father left, I immediately fed those papers into the shredder. It seems the whole family knew and was playing along with this charade. My phone vibrated with a WeChat message from our neighbor, Auntie Mabel. Cora. Good luck on your exam tomorrow. I'm rooting for you. Aunt Mabel, a retired teacher living across the hall, has always been kind to me since I was little. After a moment's hesitation, I replied, Thank you, Auntie, I'll do my best. Your mother came by today asking to borrow some sleeping pills, claiming she had insomnia, but she seemed perfectly fine to me. You might want to keep an eye on that. Sleeping pills. My whole body went rigid, the night before the exam in my previous life. My mother did bring me a warm glass of milk, saying it would help me sleep. I drank it and slept straight through till morning, but during the exam, my head was foggy and heavy, so the trap was set from that moment on. Thanks for the heads up, Auntie. After replying, I immediately added a sixth item to my plan: refuse all food and drinks from mother. 3. Late at night, I double-checked the stationery and documents I needed for the next day. Once everything was confirmed, I turned off the light and got into bed, but sleep wouldn't come. My mind was filled with the chat history between mother and my cousin. Why? Just because I'm a girl, because my cousin bears the Wang surname while I'm a Lin, or because I've always been treated as an outsider in this family since childhood. Groping in the darkness, I found my asthma inhaler under the pillow and clutched it tightly in my palm. Tomorrow will be an uphill battle, but this time I won't go down without a fight. My mother wants to use me as a sacrificial lamb, but I'm determined to build a life beyond her wildest dreams. I woke up at 5 in the morning, when the sky was still dark. My fingers brushed against the asthma inhaler by my pillow, its cool surface jolting me fully awake. Today was exam day, the day I'd get my revenge. I slipped out of bed as quietly as I could, careful not to wake my parents in the next room. First, I checked my exam supplies: ID card, admission ticket, spare pens, and scratch paper, all neatly arranged on the desk. My heart sank to the depths. Then, I retrieved the backup phone I had hidden last night from deep inside the wardrobe, turned on the recording function, and carefully tucked it behind the row of old textbooks on the bookshelf. Cora, are you up yet? My mother's knock at the door startled me so much I nearly dropped the medicine bottle in my hand. I'm up. My voice was calm, but my heart was pounding like a drum. I made you some porridge, eat it while it's hot. I stared at the doorknob, picturing my mother standing outside. On this same day in my past life, she'd shown this same kind of concern, before turning around and ruining my exam with a bowl of sugary water. I'll grab something out later. I deliberately scraped the chair loudly across the floor, going back to sleep for a bit. Silence lingered outside the door for a few seconds. Suit yourself. The sound of footsteps faded into the distance. I let out a long sigh of relief and sprang into action. First, I wedged the chair from my desk against the door, then double-checked the lock. the standard knob lock wasn't enough, so I secured the security chain I'd prepared in advance. I secretly installed this last week, and my mother still doesn't know. At 6:30, I gently opened the door. The security chain pulled taut, the hallway was empty. So I slipped into the bathroom to wash up. In the mirror, I saw 2 dark circles under my eyes, but my gaze was much more resolute than it had been on this day in my previous life. When I got back to my room, I found a glass of milk and 2 slices of bread on the floor by the door. I stared at the glass of milk, remembering Aunt Mabel's warning. I bent down to give it a sniff. It didn't seem to smell off, but I picked up the glass and poured it all into the plant pot anyway. At exactly 7 o'clock, I booted up the computer and logged into the exam system. The exam was still 2 hours away, but I needed to set up my equipment in advance. I turned on the camera and adjusted the angle, making sure only a small section of my desk and I were in the frame. "Cora, how's the internet? Do you want me to check it for you?" My mother's voice suddenly came from outside the door. I bit my lower lip. In my past life, she used that same excuse to enter my room, claiming to check the internet, but ended up messing with my computer settings, which caused constant disconnections during the exam. "No need, the connection is perfect," I stated firmly. "Why did you lock the door, kiddo? Open up. I brought you some fruit. I'm setting up my exam environment." "Can't pause now," I said steadily. "Just leave the fruit outside." An impatient tooting sound came from outside the door. "Your father took the day off just to be home. And this is how you act." I stared at my reflection in the camera and suddenly laughed. "Yeah, Dad, specifically, took time off just to watch me get destroyed. In my past life, he stood by indifferently the whole time I was having an asthma attack, not even calling 911. "Thanks, Dad, but I need some quiet," I said loudly on purpose. The heavy footsteps faded away, and I heard my father mutter under his breath, "Ungrateful wretch." At 8:45. The system prompted that I could now enter the exam interface. I took a deep breath and clicked confirm. The screen switched to a full-screen exam page, with a small window in the upper right corner displaying my live monitoring feed. The exam officially began at 9 o'clock sharp. When the first question appeared, my hands were still trembling slightly. The questions were simpler than I had anticipated, and I quickly got into the rhythm. My fingers danced across the keyboard, my mind completely focused, until, "Cora, open the door." Mother's shrill scream accompanied frantic pounding on the door. The pipe burst. "Water's about to flood your room." My fingers hovered over the keyboard, heart racing. A burst pipe. That never happened in my previous life. I glanced at the gap under the door. Bone dry as usual. Memories flooded back. "I'm taking an exam," I growled under my breath. "Hurry. Open the door. The water's coming in." Mother's voice trembled with feigned tears, her performance utterly convincing. I clenched my jaw and kept working on the test. The knocking grew louder, escalating into violent banging. The doorframe shuddered, and the chair I'd wedged against it groaned in protest. "Cora, are you deaf?" This time it was Father's roar. I took off my headphones and quickly grabbed my backup phone to call the property management. "Hi, this is Cora from Unit 502, Building 3. My water pipe just burst. Could you send someone to fix it as soon as possible?" Then I put my headphones back on, blocking out the increasingly frantic noise outside as I focused on the exam questions on my screen. The banging suddenly stopped. In the dead silence, I heard my mother's hushed voice. "Let it be, we'll talk after she finishes the exam." The corners of my mouth lifted involuntarily. As time ticked away, I found myself answering the questions with surprising ease. All the knowledge I'd accumulated over 6 months in my previous life surfaced vividly in my mind. I was even performing beyond my usual capacity. Just as I reached the final question, those familiar footsteps approached again. This time they were faint, almost deliberately slow. I stared warily at the door crack, watching a shadow pause there. "Cora, I made you some pear and rock sugar syrup. It'll soothe your throat." My mother's voice was sickeningly sweet. My eyes locked on the countdown timer. 25 minutes left. This last question was worth 30 points. I had to nail it. When I didn't respond, my mother raised her voice. "I'll leave it by the door. Make sure to drink it after your exam." I remained silent, my fingers flying across the keyboard. This door didn't just separate us physically. It also kept her control over me at bay. Finally, I finished typing the last line of answers and clicked submit. The system confirmed the submission was successful. The exam was over. I slumped in the chair, drenched in sweat. I did it. This time, I finished the exam without any interruptions or being accused of cheating. My mother outside seemed to sense it and immediately knocked on the door. Finish the exam. Open up quickly. I need to talk to you. I slowly stood up, first putting away the backup phone and confirming the recording was still going. Only then did I move the chair, undo the security chain, and unlock the door. My mother practically burst in, holding that bowl of pear and rock sugar soup as expected. Her eyes darted across my desk, and her expression darkened noticeably when she saw the computer screen had gone black. How did the exam go? She forced a smile. Pretty well, I replied calmly, deliberately adding, I finished all the questions, so I should pass. Mother's hand trembled slightly, spilling a few drops of the sweet soup from the bowl. Oh, that's good. Is the pipe fixed? I looked her straight in the eye. What pipe? She looked blank for a moment. Then it clicked. Oh, that one. Your dad patched it up for now. I nodded, letting her lie slide. Just then, my phone rang. Unknown number. You're Cora, right? A man's voice, sharp and unfriendly. This is Jules. My breath hitched. Cousin, one of the accomplices who caused my death in my past life. What do you want? My voice turned icy. Heard you did well on the exam. He sneered. Don't celebrate too soon. The interview is the real challenge. I gripped my phone tighter. What are you implying? Nothing at all. His voice suddenly turned unctuous. We're family, after all. We should look out for each other. Oh, and Auntie asked me to remind you to come home for dinner before your interview. As the call ended, I looked up and met my mother's expectant gaze. What did Jules say? She asked eagerly. He said. I repeated word by word. The interview is the main event. Mother's expression shifted briefly before she forced a smile. Yes, the interview matters more. I'll help you prepare properly when the time comes. As I watched her insincere smile, something suddenly clicked. The written exam is just the first hurdle. Their plan goes far beyond that. In my previous life, I didn't make it to the interview stage, so I never found out what other tricks they had up their sleeves. But this time, I'll be prepared. Thanks, Mom. I nodded, feigning obedience, then pointed at the bowl of sweet soup. But let's save this for cousin to drink. After all, he's the hope of our family, isn't he? Mother's pupils contracted sharply. The bowl in her hand clattered to the floor, splattering sugary water and porcelain shards everywhere. On the day the written exam results were released, it was raining Cora. I sat in the city library's digital reading room, my finger hovering over the mouse, hesitating to click the search button. I've already altered history since my rebirth, but what if the outcome falls short of expectations? Hurry up, there are people waiting behind you, came an impatient voice from behind. I took a deep breath and clicked search. The moment the page refreshed, my name jumped out at me from the top spot. Cora, 89, 5 points, ranked first out of 156. I bit down hard on my lower lip to keep from crying out. First place, a full 12 points higher than the top score in my previous life. My eyes scanned down and found that name in the second row, Jules, 82 points, ranked 2156. I quickly took a screenshot to save it, then practically floated out of the library. The cold raindrops hit my face but couldn't dampen the joy bubbling inside me. First step, success. My phone vibrated. It was Mom. I hesitated for a moment before answering. Cora, your grades are out, right? How did you do? Mother's voice was unusually eager. Not bad. I came in first, I said, deliberately downplaying it. There was a 2-second silence on the other end of the line. Really? That's fantastic. What about your cousin? Second place. Oh. Another pause. Come home for dinner tonight. I'll make your favorite dishes. I stared at my reflection in the library's glass door, a cold smirk curling at the corner of my lips. Back when I failed the exam in my past life, my mother hadn't even bothered to call. Now that I aced it, she suddenly wants to celebrate. All right, I'll be back tonight. I agreed without hesitation. Perfect chance to see what tricks they're up to now. After hanging up, I opened WeChat and found the family group chat blowing up. Uncle shared a screenshot of Jules' exam results. Our Jules came in second place. The Wang family is raising exceptional talent. A row of firecracker emojis followed below. No one mentioned my grades. I let out a cold laugh and posted my own score screenshot without any caption. 3 minutes later, the group chat fell completely silent. Even my usually chatty uncle had vanished without a trace. I locked my phone and decided to head back to my rented room to change. Ever since that blow up with my parents on exam day, I'd used school commitments as an excuse to move out. Truth was, I'd rented this tiny studio with money saved from side jobs in college. It might be basic, but at least it felt secure. At 6 in the evening, I stood before my front door. As I slid the key into the lock, an inexplicable sense of foreboding washed over me. The moment the door swung open, the aroma of a home-cooked meal greeted me. My mother emerged from the kitchen wearing an apron, her face beaming with a warm smile. "Cora, you're home, go wash up, dinner's ready." My father was sitting at the dining table, a rare sight, with an opened bottle of ergotu in front of him. When I walked in, he actually gave a nod and said, "You did well on the exam." I warily scanned the room. The living room was unusually tidy, with fruit and nuts arranged on the tea table, a level of hospitality usually reserved for when my cousin visited. "Thanks, Dad," I responded and headed straight to my room. As I pushed the door open, I immediately sensed something was off. The pen holder on the desk was tilted, the drawer wasn't fully closed, and a corner of the bedsheet was crumpled. Someone had been through my things, pretending nothing was wrong. I set down my bag and quickly checked the most important item. My exam admission ticket was still tucked in my wallet's inner pocket, but the position had clearly been tampered with. I deliberately tucked it between two bank cards, yet now it was sitting right on top. "Cora, dinner's ready," Mom called from outside the door. "Coming," I replied, my mind racing. What were they looking for when they went through my things? My exam admission ticket. But the interview notice hasn't even been sent out yet. It's useless to take it now. The dining table was laden with dishes, even including the sweet and sour spare ribs I loved so much as a child. Father poured himself a glass of wine, and a small one for Mother too. "Come on, let's celebrate Cora getting first place." Father raised his glass, his tone as stiff as if he were reading from a script. I lifted my Coke-filled cup and gave it a light clink. Mother's eyes stayed fixed on me, her smile carrying a hint of expectation. "When's the interview?" Father asked. "No notice yet, probably in about 2 weeks." I picked up a bite of vegetables with my chopsticks, deliberately avoiding the meat dishes that might have been drugged. "That position you applied for only hires one person, right?" my mother suddenly asked. My chopsticks paused. "Yeah, just one." "Well," my mother exchanged a look with my father. "Your cousin also made it to the interview, your family. So you should look out for each other." I set down my chopsticks and looked my mother in the eye. "What do you mean by go easy? Are you asking me to throw the interview? Don't be ridiculous." My father slammed his hand on the table. "Your mother just means be tactful during the interview. Don't create bad blood." 5. "Exactly," my mother chimed in quickly, smoothing things over. "We're all family. Jules is a year older than you. If he fails this exam again, his chances will be slim. You're a girl, you'll have plenty of opportunities." I stared at the rice in my bowl, my ears buzzing. This same old lecture again. So just because I'm a girl, I'm supposed to sacrifice and step aside. I'm done eating. I pushed the bowl away and stood up to leave. "Stop right there," my father's voice halted me. "What's with the attitude? We're trying to talk to you properly, and this is how you act." I turned around and looked at him calmly. "Dad, if I came in third this time and my cousin got first, would you make him give the opportunity to me?" My father's expression froze, then turned to angry embarrassment. "How is that the same? He's a boy." 3 words that said it all. He's a boy. Because of those damned 3 words, I've always been second to my cousin for 23 years. But what I've never understood is why Dad acts the same way, even though I could almost accept Mom favoring my cousin over me. Is this some deep-seated belief that girls are inferior? Does that apply even to their own daughter? "I understand," I nodded, my voice surprisingly calm. "I'll give it my all in the interview. As for the outcome, that'll depend on our individual capabilities." Back in my room, I immediately locked the door and took my exam admission ticket and other important documents out of my wallet. They won't rest until they find what they're after today. My eyes swept the room and suddenly landed on that row of old textbooks on the shelf. The most inconspicuous spots are often the safest. I pulled out my high school literature textbook and slipped the exam permit between page 66. The lesson featuring Peacocks Flying Southeast, a story about a woman abused to death by her in-laws. How fitting, I had just hidden the documents when my phone rang, an unknown number. Cora, a gentle male voice asked. It's Leo, from university. I heard you got the top score on the public institution entrance exam. It took me a few seconds to place him. Leo, the top student in our class, had passed the civil service exam in his senior year and now worked at the municipal party committee. Senior, how did you know I? Aunt Mabel is my aunt, she told me, he said with a smile. I heard you made it to the interview, need some coaching. I have some experience to share. I tightened my grip on the phone. Aunt Mabel's nephew, that kind neighbor who reminded me about the sleeping pills. Would this be too much trouble? I asked tentatively. No trouble at all. Are you free tomorrow? City Library, 10 a.m. After hanging up, I leaned against the door and let out a long sigh. Perhaps I'd finally found an ally. The next day, I arrived half an hour earlier than the agreed time. The study area on the third floor of the city library was bathed in sunlight. I chose a seat by the window, sat down, and read through my interview notice one more time. Studying this hard, a figure appeared standing in front of me. I looked up and met a pair of smiling eyes. Leo looked more mature than he did in college, wearing a white shirt with dark trousers, the typical attire of someone working within the system. He handed me one of the 2 coffee cups he was holding. American, no sugar. Right, he said as he sat down. I raised my eyebrows in surprise. You remember, you always drank this during our university study sessions. He smiled, pulling a stack of documents from his briefcase. I've compiled some common interview questions and response strategies for you to review first. Over the next 2 hours, Leo systematically walked me through the structured interview process, grading criteria, and key techniques. His analysis was spot on. He even anticipated the angles from which interviewers might follow up. One last thing, he said, closing his notebook. Never eat anything your family gives you right before the interview. I snapped my head up. What do you mean? My aunt told me what happened on your written exam day. His expression turned grave. Some families would do anything for their sons. I tightened my grip on the coffee cup, the heat seeping through the paper into my palms. My parents always favored my cousin over me. That's what I figured. Leo sighed. Interviewers can't stand candidates who are either drowsy or overly nervous. If someone wanted to sabotage you, those would be the easiest ways to do it. That sleep aid milk my mother gave me in my past life. If Aunt Mabel hadn't warned me. 6. Thanks for the heads up, I said sincerely, and these materials are incredibly helpful. No problem, he said, putting away his pen. Are you free next Wednesday? We could do a mock interview. As I left the library, the sunlight was just perfect. I took a deep breath, feeling my steps grow noticeably lighter. With a professional like Leo guiding me, I felt more confident about the interview. It was already afternoon by the time I got home. As I pushed the door open, I saw my mother watching TV on the sofa. She immediately stood up and asked, Cora, have you received the interview notice? Yes, it's next Friday, I said, making up a date on the spot to see how she would react. Her eyes lit up. We should get you properly prepared. I'll make you some brain-boosting soup. No need, I'll be staying at school for the next few days to focus on my prep, I said, heading towards my room. Wait, Mom called after me. Your desk lamp is broken. I took it to get fixed. My internal alarm bells went off. That lamp wasn't broken at all. What was she doing in my room? Oh, I'll just use the bedside lamp then. I pretended not to care and hurried toward the room. As I pushed the door open, I immediately noticed more things amiss. The books on the shelf had been rearranged, the bedside drawer was left ajar, and even the pillow had been moved. They were looking for my exam admission ticket. I acted as if I hadn't noticed anything, put down my bag, and headed straight to the bathroom. As soon as I closed the door, I pulled out my phone, downloaded a monitoring app, and connected it to the backup device I had hidden on the bookshelf. Now I'd get an alert the moment anyone entered my room. During dinner, my father unusually asked about my interview preparations. While giving vague responses, I watched their expressions. My mother kept glancing at my backpack, her fingers tapping restlessly on the table. Oh, by the way, my father suddenly said, have you got all your documents ready for the interview? Do you want me to hold on to them for you? No need. They're all at school, I lied without batting an eye. After dinner, I made an excuse about having something to do at school and hurried off. As I left the neighborhood, I glanced back at my apartment window. My mother was standing behind the curtain, watching me walk away. My phone buzzed suddenly with a WeChat from Leo. Forgot to ask, "Do you have your interview outfit ready?" I replied, "Not yet, I was planning to go shopping this weekend. Want me to recommend some stores?" There are specific dress code expectations for public sector interviews. Just as I was about to reply, my security app alerted me. Someone had entered my room. I immediately switched to the surveillance feed and saw my mother rummaging through my drawers and backpack with a furtive look. She moved with practiced ease. Clearly not her first time doing this. "What's wrong?" Leo sent another message. I took a deep breath and replied, "It's nothing, just found someone at home going through my things, looking for my exam admission ticket. Need any help?" He replied almost instantly, "I can keep your important documents safe for you." Reading his message, I felt a sudden warmth behind my eyes. A virtual stranger was willing to help me, yet my own parents. "Thanks, but no need, I've already hidden them." After sending the reply, I turned off my phone and gazed up at the night sky. This week leading up to the interview was bound to be anything but calm. The night before the interview, I deliberately stayed out late. When I pushed the door open, the living room light was still on. My mother was sitting on the sofa, a steaming cup of tea in front of her. Hearing the noise, she immediately stood up, a warm smile spreading across her face. "Cora, you're back. I made you some calming tea. Do your best in the interview tomorrow." I stared at the cup of tea, the amber liquid gently swirling in the glass. I'd seen this scene in my past life too, but back then I drank it without a second thought. The next day, I was groggy during the interview, my words stumbling and incoherent. "No thanks, Mom, I'm not really a tea person." I set my bag down on the shoe cabinet and headed straight for my room. "Just one cup, I made it especially for you." My mother picked up the cup and followed me. "Chrysanthemum with goji berries. It's calming and helps you sleep." As the cup was handed to me, a cloyingly sweet aroma wafted into my nostrils, masking a faint, almost imperceptible bitterness. I took the cup and pretended to fumble, spilling most of the tea onto the floor. "Oops," I exclaimed. "Sorry, Mom, I'm just so nervous." Mother's face instantly darkened, but she suppressed her anger. "It's all right, there's more in the kitchen, I'll pour you another cup." "Really, no need," I said, stepping around her as I headed toward my room. "I want to turn in early." "Cora," Mother's voice suddenly sharpened, "are you really going to be so ungrateful?" I turned around and saw her standing there, clutching a dishcloth so tightly her knuckles were white. Something in her eyes sent a jolt through me, not anger, but a frantic, panicked look, like a plan was about to fall apart. "Fine," I said softly, "I'll have a sip." She immediately relaxed and hurried to the kitchen to pour another cup. This time, I took it, pretended to take a sip, but actually let the tea trickle down the corner of my mouth and drip onto my collar. "Thanks, Mom." I placed the cup back on the coffee table. "I'm going to bed." Back in my room, I immediately locked the door, pulled out the test strips I had prepared in advance from my pocket, and gently dabbed at the tea stain on my collar. The test strip gradually turned a light blue, a positive result, indicating the presence of benzodiazepine sedatives. I'd seen it coming, but having it confirmed right before my eyes still sent a sharp pang of nausea twisting in my gut. My own mother, to help her nephew, had resorted to drugging me. I took a picture of the test strip, saved it to the cloud, and then tucked it into a hidden compartment in my wallet. Just as I finished, my phone vibrated with a WeChat message from Leo. "Are you ready? I found sleeping pills in the tea my mom gave me." I replied bluntly, my fingers trembling slightly. Typing immediately appeared above the chat box, and Leo called seconds later. "Did you drink it?" His voice was tense. "No, I pretended to drink it but actually poured it out," I whispered, lowering my voice. The test strip detected benzodiazepines. A long exhale came through the phone. "I'll pick you up tomorrow morning, and we'll go straight to the interview center. Don't eat anything at home." After hanging up, I lay on the bed, staring at the ceiling. My mother's footsteps approached from outside the room. She paused at the door for a few seconds, then gently knocked. "Cora, are you asleep?" I closed my eyes and pretended to be asleep. The doorknob turned gently, but since I had locked it, she couldn't get in. The sound of footsteps faded into the distance, and I let out a long sigh of relief. I woke up at 4 a.m. It was still pitch black outside, but I couldn't get back to sleep. I got out of bed quietly and took my prepared interview outfit from the wardrobe, a light blue shirt and a dark gray suit skirt, the safe choice Leo had recommended. At exactly 6 o'clock, my phone lit up. Leo had sent a message. I'm at the entrance of the residential area. Round one goes to me, carrying a bag with high heels and documents. I quietly pushed the door open. The living room was silent. My parents must still be asleep. Tiptoeing to the front door, I gently turned the lock. Where are you going so early? My father's voice came from behind. I froze, then slowly turned around. My father stood at the kitchen doorway in his pajamas, holding a water glass. Going for an interview? I replied curtly. It's only 6 o'clock. Isn't your interview at 9? My father frowned. Your mother made you breakfast. I'm not hungry. I reached for the doorknob. Stop right there. Father raised his voice abruptly. What's going on with you lately? You're treating us like we're criminals. I took a deep breath. Dad, did you know there was sleeping pills in the tea Mom gave me yesterday? His expression instantly froze, eyes darting nervously. Don't talk nonsense. I've had it tested. I waved my phone. Want to see the lab results? My father's face flushed crimson. Your mother only wants what's best for you. You're nervous about the interview. Can't sleep. Enough. I cut him off. Since I was little, you've only had eyes for my cousin, when I came first in exams. You weren't happy. Instead you'd schemed to help him compete against me. I'm your own flesh and blood. The last sentence was practically shouted. Father froze, a flicker of something I couldn't decipher in his eyes, but his expression quickly turned cold again. Ungrateful brat, he muttered under his breath before turning and retreating to the bedroom. I pushed the door open and dashed downstairs. The morning air carried a chill. And I gulped it down until I spotted Leo standing at the entrance of our complex. He was dressed in a dark suit, carrying a breakfast bag in his hand. Are you okay? He approached, his gaze falling on my reddened eyes. I shook my head and took the soy milk and steamed buns he handed me. Thanks. Sorry to trouble you again. 7. Don't mention it. He smiled. Get in the car. We'll arrive early so you can prepare a bit more. In the car, I took small sips of soy milk. Finally feeling some warmth in my stomach, Leo focused on driving, occasionally glancing at me through the rearview mirror. Your parents, he hesitated. Have they always been like this? Yeah, I watched the scenery rushing past outside the window. My cousin is a boy, the one to carry on the Wang family line. I'm just an outsider who'll be married off sooner or later. Leo was silent for a moment. My parents divorced when I was young. And I was raised by my aunt. I didn't get much parental love, but at least, no one ever hurt me. There was a vulnerability in his voice I'd never heard before. I turned to look at him and noticed how resolute his profile appeared in the morning light. A line had already formed outside the interview center. Leo parked the car and pulled a shoebox from the trunk. Try these on. Size 37. Should fit you perfectly. I opened the box to find a pair of elegant matte black heels, simple yet sophisticated. This is, just borrowing them. Return them after the interview. He winked. They're my cousin's, and she wears the same size as you. I slipped the shoes on. They fit like a glove. Leo took a step back to look me over and nodded. Very professional. Remember to structure your answers, maintain eye contact, and keep a steady pace. At exactly 9 o'clock, I walked into the waiting room, with my phone already turned in. I could only rely on deep breaths to calm my racing heart. Through the glass window, I saw Leo still standing outside, giving me a thumbs-up gesture for encouragement. Number 1178, Cora, the staff member called my name. I stood up, straightened my collar, and walked into the examination room with my head held high. 5 examiners sat behind a long table, their expressions stern. The chief examiner in the middle was a woman in her 50s, with short silver-gray hair and a piercing gaze. Please have a seat. She gestured for me to sit in the chair opposite her. First, please give a 3-minute self-introduction. Hello. I took a deep breath and began the self-introduction Leo had helped me polish repeatedly. My voice didn't tremble, my gaze didn't waver. Everything went according to plan. Some of the following questions were expected, while others were quite tricky. The toughest one was an emergency response question. Suppose a project you're responsible for suffers significant losses due to a colleague's mistake, and your supervisor holds you accountable. What would you do? After pausing for 2 seconds, I answered using Leo's bullet point method. First, immediately mitigate losses and take corrective actions. Second, take responsibility proactively without blaming colleagues. Third, summarize lessons learned and improve procedures to prevent recurrence. After finishing my response, I noticed the examiner giving an almost imperceptible nod. The 30-minute interview flew by faster than I'd expected. As I walked out of the examination room, my shirt was soaked through at the back, but I couldn't suppress a smile. I'd performed well, even better than usual. Leo was waiting for me at the exit and came right over as soon as he saw me. How did it go? That's great. I couldn't help but laugh. That emergency question was almost exactly what you predicted. His eyes lit up. I knew you could do it. Come on, I'll treat you to a meal to celebrate. We had just reached the parking lot when my phone rang. It was my mother, finished with the interview. Her voice was unusually calm. Come home, there's something I need to discuss with you. I gripped my phone tightly. What's up? We'll talk when you get back. The call ended abruptly. Leo noticed my expression darken instantly. Heading home, yeah, my mom wants me back. I gave a wry smile. Probably to ask if I've messed things up again. I'll drive you. He opened the car door. If needed, I can wait downstairs for you. When the car stopped in front of my apartment building, Leo showed no intention of leaving. I hesitated for a moment. Maybe, you could come up with me. He looked slightly surprised but nodded immediately. Sure. As I pushed the door open, the atmosphere in the living room made me pause mid-step. My father, mother, uncle, aunt, and even my cousin Jules were all there, sitting around the sofa as if holding a family meeting. Everyone's eyes instantly turned to me, then to Leo. Who is this? My father demanded, breaking the silence. My classmate, Leo, I said briefly. He gave me a ride home after my interview. Cousin Jules scoffed, bringing a man home and still putting on this act of innocence. Just as I was about to retort, Leo gently pressed my shoulder. Hello everyone. I'm Leo from the Municipal Party Committee's Propaganda Department, Cora's university classmate. His tone was gentle yet firm. She performed exceptionally well in today's interview. The air in the room seemed to freeze for a second. Cousin's face turned sour, while Uncle furrowed his brow. The Municipal Party Committee. Yes, Leo smiled. Cora and I are just classmates. I'm only helping out today as a friend. But, his gaze swept across the room. If anyone tries to mess with her, I won't stand by and do nothing. Mother suddenly stood up. Cora, come here. I stayed where I was. Mom, just say what you need to say. Do you even care about this family? Mother's voice began to tremble. You're opposing everyone over some lousy job. Jules is your cousin. Can't you give in to him just this once? Let him have it. I heard my own voice, eerily calm. I earned first place in the written exam on my own merit, and I prepared for the interview by myself. What did cousin score? Third place. If he's so capable, he should have outperformed me. How dare you? Uncle slammed the table and stood up. Is that any way to speak to your elders? I just have one question. I looked straight into my mother's eyes. Mom, why are you helping cousin instead of me? I'm your own daughter. Mother's face contorted. What do you know? Jules is the only male heir of the Wang family. You'll marry out someday anyway. What does a girl need such a good job for? Every word felt like a dagger to the heart. 8. Even though I already knew the answer, hearing it out loud hurt so much I could barely stand. Leo's hand quietly steadied my back. I understand. I nodded, my voice surprisingly calm. From now on, I'll walk my own path. You all, take care of yourselves. With that, I turned and headed to my room to pack my essentials. Leo stood at the door, blocking my cousin like a solid wall. Move it. Jules shoved Leo aside. This is family business. Leo stood his ground. Nobody's getting through until she's done packing. I stuffed clothes, documents, my laptop, and other essentials into the suitcase. Finally, I pulled my high school literature textbook from the shelf and retrieved the admission ticket and other papers tucked inside. When I walked out of the room, the whole family was still standing right where I'd left them, each wearing a different expression. My father hung his head in silence. My mother's eyes were red-rimmed but her gaze remained icy, while my cousin's face was twisted with resentment. I'm leaving, I said without looking back, dragging my suitcase behind me. Don't you dare come back. My mother shrieked from behind me. Ungrateful wretch. Leo gently closed the door, shutting out the curses. As I went downstairs, my pace quickened until I was almost jogging. It wasn't until I slid into the car that I realized my face was streaked with tears. Leo handed me a tissue without a word, quietly waiting for me to collect myself. Sorry you had to see that. I wiped my tears and managed a weak smile. No need to apologize. He started the car. Let's go to my aunt's place. She has a spare room. After we'd driven some distance, I suddenly remembered something. Wait, I need to go back to my apartment to grab a few things. Leo turned around. On the way, my phone kept vibrating with one message after another from the family group chat. My uncle sent a long voice message. I didn't open it and just muted the group directly. The rental apartment was small, but at least it was my safe haven. Leo helped me carry my luggage upstairs, then stood at the door and said, "You should rest. I'll head off now." Wait, I called out to him, and, "Thank you for today." He turned around, the sunlight from the corridor window casting a golden outline around his silhouette. "No need to thank me. The interview results will be out in 3 days. I'll come with you to check them then." After the door closed, I collapsed onto the bed, completely drained. My phone rang again. This time it was Aunt Mabel. "Cora, your mom has been calling everyone looking for you. She says you ran away from home. Do you need any help?" I replied, "I'm fine, Auntie. I'm just staying somewhere else for now. Thanks for your concern." I set down my phone and walked into the bathroom. Staring at my reflection in the mirror, my eyes were swollen and red, but held a determined gaze. This time, instead of asking, "Am I unworthy of love?" I told myself, I deserved to pursue my own future. On the day the interview results were announced, the sky was so gloomy it felt like it was pressing down on us. I stood in front of the bulletin board at the Municipal Personnel Examination Center, my fingers gripping the strap of my bag tightly. Leo stood beside me, glancing at his watch from time to time. There were 10 minutes left until the results were announced, and the area was already packed with examinees and their families. "Nervous?" Leo asked in a low voice. I shook my head, then nodded. Claiming I wasn't nervous would be a lie. Even though the interview had gone well, I'd never made it this far in my previous life. Everything was uncharted territory. The electronic screen next to the bulletin board suddenly lit up, causing a stir in the crowd. Staff began posting the recruitment list, and everyone surged forward. Leo shielded me from the front, creating space between me and the jostling crowd. "Watch your step." My eyes quickly scanned the A3 sheet, landing on my name under the first position, Municipal Development and Reform Commission General Affairs. Cora, total score 87.6, ranked first. I made the cut. Congratulations. Leo gave my shoulder a gentle nudge, his eyes sparkling. First place. My lips parted, but no sound came out. My eyes grew hot and my vision blurred. I quickly lowered my head, blinking back those stubborn tears. This was a moment I should have been sharing with family, but they were waiting for me to fail. My phone vibrated. It was Mom. "Have you got the results yet?" Her voice was unnervingly calm, as if asking about the weather forecast. "Yes, I got in, top of the list." I made a conscious effort to keep my tone even. There was a brief silence on the other end. "Oh, that's nice. What about your cousin?" I scanned the list and found Jules' name on the 3rd page. He ranked 7th overall for the Industrial and Commercial Bureau position he applied for, but they were only hiring 6 people. He didn't make it, missed by 1 spot. I replied. The call abruptly ended. No congratulations, no concern, just an icy silence. I stared at the darkened screen, feeling like a heavy stone was pressing against my chest. "Are your family upset?" Leo asked cautiously. I gave a wry smile. "All they care about is whether my cousin passed the exam." As we stepped out of the testing center, the rain finally began to fall. Leo opened his umbrella and gestured for me to move closer. The umbrella wasn't very large. Our shoulders nearly touched, and I could catch the faint scent of pine from him. "What's the plan now?" he asked. "I'll head back to my rental to pack first, and then," I paused, "I'll probably need to find a new place. Aunt Mabel's place is nice, but I can't overstay my welcome. Now that I have a job, it's time to be truly independent. I'll keep an eye out for apartments near your office," Leo said, just as his phone rang. He glanced at it and frowned. "Something came up at the office. I need to head over there first." "You should go. I've already taken up enough of your time today." "It's no trouble at all." He hesitated for a moment. "Are you free tonight? Let me take you out to dinner to celebrate." I nodded, watching him stride briskly toward the parking lot, his straight back resembling a pine tree. Through the curtain of rain, that silhouette inexplicably brought me a sense of calm. Back at the rental, I changed into dry clothes and began organizing the evidence I'd gathered, screenshots of Mom's chats with my cousin, the sleeping pill test results, and surveillance footage of her rifling through my room. With each review, my heart grew colder. Tucked away in the deepest part of the drawer was a small notebook, my expense ledger dating back to high school, every penny I asked from my family during college, tuition, living expenses, was logged here with "to repay" scribbled beside each entry. As I flipped to the last few pages, some unusual entries caught my eye. 2023, 3/15, Mom transferred 5,000 to Jules, labeled as a loan. 2023, 4/2, Mom sent another 3,000 to Jules, no mention of repayment. April 28, 2023, Mom withdrew 10,000 in cash. Probably for my uncle's family. I furrowed my brow. She's always been so stingy with me, even refusing to buy new clothes. Yet she hands such a large sum to my cousin. Scrolling further back, I found over a dozen similar transactions totaling more than 50,000 yuan. My phone buzzed with a WeChat notification from my cousin Esme. Congrats on passing the exam, sis. But things are really tense at home. Bro trashed his room saying you stole his spot. I replied with a cold laugh. There was only one opening, we competed fair and square. How is that stealing? That's not how they see it. Esme immediately sent a voice message. Her voice hushed. Auntie just told bro not to worry. They'll find a way to stop you from going. My whole body went rigid. Another way, the physical exam, the background check, or peering through the peephole and seeing it was Leo. I quickly opened the door. He was holding 2 bags of food, his hair and shoulders completely drenched. Finished with work stuff and figured you probably hadn't eaten yet. He lifted the bags slightly. Got your favorites, sweet and sour pork ribs and dry-fried green beans. I felt a sudden lump in my throat and quickly turned to let him in. How did you get so soaked? Had to park quite far from your place. He took off his wet jacket, and I naturally took it from him to hang on the coat rack. At the dinner table, Leo listened to me recount my family's reaction and my cousin's warning, his frown deepening with every word. They won't let this go, he said, putting down his chopsticks. The medical exam and background check are the easiest stages to manipulate. I'm not worried about the medical exam. I've always been healthy, I said, biting my lower lip. But the background check, my family should be fine, right, generally. As long as your immediate family has no criminal record. It should be okay, Leo mused. But if your parents go to your workplace and make a scene, a sharp pain twisted in my stomach, would they really go that far, ruin my future just for my cousin? By the way, I found this. I slid the ledger over to Leo, pointing at the transfer records to my cousin. Leo flipped through it, his expression growing serious. That's quite a sum. Has your mother always been this close with your cousin? It's always been like this since we were kids. I said with a bitter smile, my cousin is the only male heir in the Wang family, so my mother treats him like her own son. Leo seemed to hesitate, but in the end, he just said, keep these records safe, they might come in handy. After the meal, he offered to help me with the dishes. The kitchen was so small that we kept bumping into each other. Over the sound of running water, he suddenly said, my aunt knows someone at the housing bureau. She asked around and found a 1-bedroom near your office for 2,000 a month, first and last month's rent plus security deposit. If you're interested, we can check it out tomorrow. My hands stilled on the plate I was wiping. 2,000 was 2/3 of my internship salary, but it should be manageable once I get a full-time position. Okay, let's see it tomorrow. I nodded. Thank you, Leo. I don't know what I'd do without you. Don't say that. He took the plate from my hands. Our fingers brushing briefly. Friends should always help each other out. Friends, the word warmed my heart. Growing up, I rarely brought friends home due to my unusual family situation. I avoided getting too close to anyone, afraid they'd see the mess I came from. By the time I walked Leo to the door, the rain had stopped. In the dim light of the hallway, his profile stood out with striking clarity. Shall I pick you up tomorrow to see the apartment? He asked. Yes, thank you, I appreciate it. He turned to leave but paused, adding, Cora, you deserve a better life. Those words were like a key, unlocking a tightly sealed box within my heart. I stood at the doorway, watching him descend the stairs until the sound of his footsteps faded away. Only then did I close the door, leaning against it as I slowly slid down to the floor. The floodgates finally burst open, for the love that had been missing for 23 years, for the success that no one was here to share today. And for those words, "You deserve this." Early the next morning, my phone's ringtone jolted me awake from my sleep. It was a call from the HR department, informing me to report for duty next Monday and reminding me to bring all the required documents, including a copy of my household register. The household register, that thing had always been kept at home, under my parents' care. I bit my nails, pondering how to get it. Should I just go back and ask for it directly, or sneak in to take it when they're not home? Just as I was hesitating, Leo texted me on WeChat, "Are you up? Let's check out the apartment at 10. I replied saying okay, then told him I needed my household registration booklet. "I'll go with you to get it." He replied instantly, "We'll go today." After a quick breakfast, I changed into jeans and a t-shirt. Just as I finished packing my bag, the doorbell rang. Leo was dressed casually today in a white t-shirt and light-colored chinos. Looking a few years younger than usual. "Ready?" he asked. I nodded, but my heart was pounding. It had been a week since I left home after the interview, and I had no idea what awaited me. By the time the car stopped at the entrance of my residential complex, my palms were already drenched in sweat. Leo seemed to notice my nervousness and gave my shoulder a gentle pat. "Do you want me to wait downstairs? Let's go up together." I took a deep breath. At least you'll be my witness." The familiar smell in the stairwell made my stomach churn. Standing in front of my apartment door, I hesitated for a few seconds before pulling out my key. Had they changed the locks? The key slid smoothly into the lock, turned, and the door opened. In the living room, Father sat reading a newspaper on the sofa, while Mother busied herself in the kitchen. Hearing the door open, they both looked up simultaneously, their expressions shifting swiftly from surprise to indifference. "So you still remember your way home?" Father snorted coldly. "I'm here to get the household register. The office needs a copy." I stated my purpose directly, my voice calmer than I'd expected. My mother emerged from the kitchen wiping her hands, her eyes darting between me and Leo. "Who's this?" "My colleague, Leo," I introduced briefly. "Where's the household register? What's the rush?" She wiped her hands on her apron. "Stay for dinner before you go." "No need. We have other matters to attend to." I walked toward my parents' bedroom, where there was a drawer specifically for important documents. My mother suddenly rushed over and blocked my path. "Do you even care about this family? Coming and going as you please." "Mom, I'm just here to get the household register." I tried to step around her. "Did you drug your cousin to make him perform poorly in the interview?" My mother suddenly blurted out something shocking. I froze in place. "What? Jules has always had better grades than you. How could she possibly score lower?" Mother's voice turned shrill. "You must have cheated." Leo stepped forward. "Auntie, the entire exam was recorded on camera. It was completely fair. Cora got in on her own merit. This is a family matter. Outsiders have no right to interfere." Father suddenly slammed the newspaper down and stood up. "Give me the household register and I'll leave right now." I said through gritted teeth, "No." My mother blocked the bedroom door. "Go apply for one yourself if you're so capable." Staring at my mother's ferocious expression, it suddenly dawned on me, "You're trying to sabotage my political background check." The flicker in my father's eyes confirmed my suspicion. "Fine, I'll go straight to the police station to apply for the household registration certificate." I turned to leave. "Stop," Mother shrieked. "If you dare walk out that door, don't ever call us your parents again." Her words stabbed through my heart like a knife. I halted and turned to face them, Father with his darkened expression, Mother with eyes full of resentment. These were my family, willing to sacrifice my future just to accommodate my cousin. "Hello, the moment you helped my cousin harm me, you lost the right to call yourselves parents." I spoke through gritted teeth, my voice trembling violently. "Keep the household registry. You're on your own now." Leo gently took my arm and led me away. As the door closed, I heard my mother's hysterical sobbing and my father smashing things. My legs felt like jelly going downstairs, barely able to carry me. Leo half supported, half carried me to the car and handed me a bottle of water. "Don't worry. I can help you get the household registration certificate," he said softly. "A college classmate of mine works at the police station." I shook my head, then suddenly remembered something. "Wait, I need to get the household register itself." I was too upset earlier to remember. It has the record of my mom's money transfer to my cousin. Leo's eyes lit up. You mean, every time my mom withdrew money from my cousin, she'd jot it down on the back of the household register? I recalled. That's solid evidence. Then we need to find a way to get it, Leo pondered. Your parents must be guarding it like hawks right now. Just as we were talking, my phone rang. It was an unknown number. Cora, I presume, a gruff male voice said. This is Director Liu from the Administration for Industry and Commerce. I'd like to discuss your cousin Jules' situation with you. I became alert. What is it? He missed the cutoff by one spot, which is a real shame. The other person paused. I heard you passed the exam for the National Development and Reform Commission. Perfect timing. I know your future boss. How about this? You withdraw your qualification this year, and we guarantee you'll be admitted next year. What do you say? I was shaking with anger. This is against the rules. Rules are rigid, but people are flexible. The other person chuckled. A young woman like you shouldn't waste such a great position. I hung up before he could finish speaking. My hands trembling so badly I could barely hold the phone. What's wrong? Leo asked with concern. After I told him about the call, Leo's face instantly darkened. This is a serious violation. Did you record it? 9. No. I shook my head in frustration. Next time you get a call like that, make sure to record it, Leo said gravely. Right now, let's head to the police station first and get the household registration certificate. We'll figure out the household registry booklet later. Halfway through the drive, my phone rang again. This time, it was Aunt Mabel. Cora. Your parents just called everyone looking for you, saying you stole money from home. Aunt Mabel's voice was urgent. They even posted in the family group chat, claiming you've been led astray by some bad man. My vision went black, and I nearly fainted. How could they slander me like this? Auntie, I didn't steal the money. That was my own paycheck, I explained, struggling to contain my anger. Of course I know you wouldn't, Aunt Mabel whispered, lowering her voice. But your mother was just going through your room, and it looked like she took something. My heart sank, when, just 10 minutes ago, I happened to be on the balcony and saw her entering your room. I hung up immediately and turned to Leo. Turn around, my mom's tearing through my room. Leo swerved sharply, tires screeching. 10 minutes later, we were back at my apartment building. I'll go up, you wait here, I said, unbuckling my seatbelt. It's too dangerous, I'm coming with you, Leo replied. Turning off the engine and reaching for the door. No, they'd be even more excited if they saw you. I shook my head. I'll grab my things and be right down. As I climbed the stairs, my heart hammered against my ribs like it was trying to escape. I slid the key into the lock and turned it gently. It wasn't bolted. Pushing the door open, I found the living room empty. I tiptoed toward my room, where the door was slightly ajar. When I pushed it open, my mother was sitting on my bed, holding an envelope. So you did come back. She gave a cold laugh. Looking for this, I recognized it. That was the cash envelope with my internship earnings, about 3,000 yuan. That's my money, I said, standing my ground. Yours. My mother stood up. You eat my food, live under my roof, and still dare to call it your money. I earned this from 3 months of interning, I said calmly, though my palms were sweating. Put it down and get out of my room. Mother suddenly stuffed the envelope into her own pocket. Want it? Come and get it. I took a deep breath and turned toward the desk. The drawer had been ransacked, but the ledger was still there. I quickly grabbed it, while catching a glimpse of the household register on the nightstand behind my mother. Put that book down. Mother lunged forward to snatch it. I dodged out of the way and seized the chance to rush to the nightstand, grabbing the household register in one swift motion. Thief. Robber, Mother shrieked, grabbing my hair. Give it back. My scalp burned with pain, but I clung desperately to the household register and account book. We wrestled, knocking over the nightstand with a loud crash. The door burst open and Father rushed in. What's going on? She's stealing, Mother screamed, pointing at me. Without a word, my father slapped me across the face. I couldn't dodge in time. My cheek burned with pain, and I tasted blood in my mouth. Hand it over, my father roared. I backed into the corner, clutching the household register and account book tightly against my chest. These are mine. How dare you defy me? My father moved to strike again when suddenly a figure stepped in front of me. It was Leo. He had slipped in unnoticed and now firmly held my father's raised wrist. Sir, let's talk this through calmly. You again. My father struggled but couldn't break free, his face turning livid. Get out of my house. A chill ran down my spine. I'll leave. Leo said calmly, but Cora is an adult, she has every right to take her belongings. My mother suddenly collapsed to the floor, wailing, you heartless child, choosing a job over your own parents. The commotion drew the neighbors, who gathered at the door whispering and pointing. My cheek throbbed with pain, but my mind had never been clearer. This was the last time I would ever let them hurt me. Let's go, I said, tugging gently on Leo's sleeve. He shielded me as we moved through the crowd of onlookers. As we headed downstairs, I heard my father roaring behind us, if you leave now, don't you dare come back, don't ever call us family again. Once inside the car, I finally broke down, sobbing uncontrollably. Leo quietly handed me a tissue and waited until I'd calmed down a little before asking, where to now? The police station. I wiped my tears and turned to the last page of the household register. First, we need to get a residence certificate, and then, my voice trailed off abruptly. The final page was crammed with records of my mother's money transfers to my cousin, but what shocked me most was the most recent entry, May 20th, 2023 to 50,000 to Jules, to bribe Director Lou from the Industry and Commerce Bureau. The date was just 3 days ago. Leo, I pointed at the page, showing it to him. This is evidence of bribery. He gasped sharply. This is bordering on criminal activity. I closed the household register and gazed at the familiar apartment buildings outside the car window. That place used to be my home, but now it had become the most dangerous place of all. To the police station, I heard my own voice say with unusual resolve, it's time to end this. The police station's air conditioning was turned up high. I sat on the bench, clutching the household register and account book so tightly my knuckles turned white. Are you sure you want to file a report? Leo asked in a low voice. Once it's officially registered, there's no turning back. I stared at the patterns on the floor tiles, my thoughts in turmoil. Those transfer records on the last page of the household register, especially the 50,000 yuan to Director Lou, were enough to constitute bribery, but reporting my own parents, Cora, a policewoman stood at the office door calling my name. I stood up, my legs feeling like lead. Leo gave my shoulder a gentle squeeze, a silent show of support. The office was cramped, with just one desk and 2 chairs. The police officer, a woman in her 30s with short hair and bright, perceptive eyes, asked, are you here for a household registration certificate? Yes, I replied, handing over the household register. I also need to consult about some legal matters. She opened the register, her gaze lingering on the last page for a few seconds. A slight frown creased her brow as she asked, what's this? Money transfers my mother recorded, I said, my voice tightening. This most recent one was for a section chief at the Administration for Industry and Commerce. The policewoman's expression turned serious immediately. Do you know the specifics? I briefly explained how my cousin had failed the exam and that my mother might be trying to bribe me into giving up my qualification. After hearing this, the officer handed me a form. This is an incident report. Are you filing a complaint? I stared at the form, my pen hovering in mid-air. Filing a report meant my parents could face criminal charges. Our family would be torn apart. The pen tip trembled against the paper, leaving an ink blot. You can get your household registration certificate first. We can discuss other matters once you've had more time to think. The policewoman seemed to sense my inner conflict, her tone softening slightly. In the end, I only applied for the household registration certificate. By the time I stepped out of the police station, night had fallen. Streetlights flickered on, casting their glow on the document in my hand. A single sheet of paper, yet it marked the beginning of my independence. Are you hungry? Leo asked. I shook my head, then suddenly remembered something. I need to go back to the rental to pick up some clean clothes. I'll walk you out. In the car, I scrolled through my phone, dozens of unread messages. The family group chat was blowing up. Uncle had sent a long voice message, but I skipped it and kept scrolling. My cousin Esme privately messaged me, sis, brother's gone crazy. He says he's coming to settle the score with you. Be careful. My heart tightened. Does he know where I live? No, but he went to ambush you at your workplace. I bit my lower lip. The workplace? I haven't even officially started yet. How could he possibly know? Leo noticed my unease. What's wrong? My cousin said he's going to settle the score with me. I showed him my phone. Leo frowned. Don't go anywhere alone these next few days. I'll stay with you. The area below the rental apartment was eerily quiet. Leo insisted on walking me upstairs and waited by the door. As I inserted the key into the lock, the distinct smell of cigarette smoke drifted through the door crack. Someone's in my room. I stumbled back a step, bumping into Leo's chest. He immediately went on alert, pulling me behind him as he gently pushed the door open. My cousin Jules was lounging on my bed with his legs crossed, a cigarette dangling from his fingers, several stubbed out butts already littered the floor. When he saw us, he flashed a grin, revealing stained yellowish teeth. Finally decided to show up, little cousin, he drawled, brought along a bodyguard. My blood ran cold. How did he find this place? Who gave him a key? You need to leave, Leo said, stepping in front of me, his voice icy. This is trespassing. My cousin stood up, half a head shorter than Leo but radiating aggression. Get lost. This is family business. No room for outsiders to butt in. You followed me. I peeked out from behind Leo. Why would I need to follow you? My cousin sneered. Your mom gave me the address, said you stole money from the family and ran off, sent me here to educate you. A sharp pain twisted in my gut. My own mother, she knew full well how hot-headed my cousin was. He'd once beaten a classmate so badly in high school they ended up in the hospital. I didn't steal any money. That's my own paycheck, I said, my voice trembling but struggling to stay clear. Now please leave, or I'll call the police. Call the police, my cousin burst out laughing. Then suddenly turned furious, kicking over my chair. You got me fired, and you dare threaten to call the cops. I took a step back until my back hit the wall. I got you fired. If it weren't for you, Section Chief Lou would have fixed everything for me. My cousin's eyes were bloodshot. Now the money's returned. My job's gone. All because of your damn interference. It suddenly hit me. My indecision had actually saved my cousin, because I didn't report him right away. Section Chief Lou had time to return the 50,000, and the whole thing was probably swept under the rug. You had it coming. Years of pent-up rage finally erupted. Since we were kids, your family's been leeching off ours. My mom gave you money, bought you clothes, and even your college tuition was paid by my dad. I never even dared ask for new clothes because I didn't want to add to my family's burden. My cousin froze for a second, then lunged at me with a vicious snarl. You bitch. Leo reacted instantly, shoving my cousin back. Enough. One more move and I'm calling the police. My cousin staggered a few steps before steadying himself, then pointed a finger in my face. Cora, you think getting accepted means you're home free? Think again. The physical exam, the background check. I've got plenty of ways to make sure you never make it there. What ways? I met his gaze squarely. More bribery, like your father. That remark hit a raw nerve. His father, my uncle, had once been disciplined for embezzlement. My cousin's face instantly turned ashen. He snatched a glass from the table and hurled it straight at me. Leo sidestepped to block it. The glass grazed his forehead before shattering against the wall. A trickle of blood ran down from his hairline. Leo, I cried out in alarm, quickly moving to support him. My cousin froze, clearly not expecting actual bloodshed. Seizing the moment, I pulled out my phone and dialed 911. Hello, 110. Someone has broken into my home and assaulted me. I quickly gave them my address. My cousin finally snapped out of it, cursed under his breath, and bolted for the door. Leo tried to stop him, but I held him back. Let him go. The police will track him down. The door slammed shut, and the room finally fell silent. I quickly grabbed a towel and pressed it against Leo's wound. Does it hurt? Should we go to the hospital? Just a scratch. I'm fine. He took the towel and held it himself. Are you okay? I shook my head. Then my legs suddenly gave way and I collapsed to the floor. My breathing grew rapid, and a familiar tightness and pain seized my chest. An asthma attack was coming on. My medicine. I pointed toward the nightstand, but I couldn't form a complete sentence. Leo immediately found my inhaler and handed it to me. With trembling hands, I took a few puffs and gradually began to calm down. It's okay now, just breathe deeply. Leo patted my back gently, his voice impossibly soft. 10 minutes later, 2 police officers knocked and entered. After briefly asking about the incident, they examined Leo's injury and collected the cigarette butts and broken glass from the floor as evidence. 10. Do you know the suspect? The younger officer asked. My cousin, Jules. I provided his ID number and address. He just threatened to interfere with my pre-employment physical and background check. The officers exchanged a look. We'll summon him for questioning. Stay alert these days. And call the police immediately if anything happens. After the police left, the room fell into silence. The bleeding on Leo's forehead had stopped, but it left a noticeable red mark. I'm sorry for getting you involved, I said guiltily. Don't say that, he said with a smile. What about you? What are you going to do next? I looked around the small rental apartment and suddenly felt it was no longer safe. My cousin knows this place. My mother gave him the address. They won't let this go. I want to move as soon as possible. I stood up and started packing essentials. Could I stay at Aunt Mabel's tonight? Of course. Leo helped me pack. But in the long run, you'll need a place they don't know about. Halfway through packing, my phone rang. It's Dad. Hello. I answered hesitantly. You called the police on your cousin. Father's voice was icy. He broke into my home and assaulted my friend. I retorted. Drop the case now, Father roared, or don't you ever think about setting foot in this house again. I tightened my grip on the phone, suddenly feeling utterly exhausted. Dad, is that home still open to me? There was a brief silence on the other end. As long as you behave. You'll always be our daughter. Behave. I gave a bitter laugh. You mean quit my job to make things easier for cousin? What does a girl need such a good job for? Father raised his voice again. Jules is a boy. He has to provide for his family. Then what about me? Don't I need to make a living? My voice began to tremble. Ever since we were little, you only had eyes for our cousin. When he failed exams, you comforted him. When I aced mine, you accused me of cheating. When he got sick, you rushed medicine to him overnight. But when I had an asthma attack, you said I was just putting on a show. Enough, my father cut me off. Last time I'm asking, will you drop the case or not? No, I replied resolutely. My mother's shrieks and my father's curses came through the phone before the call abruptly ended. I set down my phone and realized my hands were trembling badly. Leo quietly took my hand, warmth spreading from his palm. Well done, he said softly. After quickly packing some clothes and important documents, we left the rental apartment. As we went downstairs, I noticed a familiar black car parked by the curb. It was my cousin's car. Was he still here? Leo saw it too and immediately pulled me back into the stairwell. Let's use the back door. We circled around to the back gate of the complex, flagged down a taxi and headed straight to Aunt Mabel's place. I kept glancing over my shoulder during the ride, making sure we weren't being followed. Aunt Mabel was surprised to see us, especially when she noticed the wound on Leo's forehead. After hearing what happened, she immediately cleared out a guest room. Stay as long as you need, don't be afraid. That night, I lay in an unfamiliar bed but slept unusually soundly. Maybe I was just exhausted, or maybe I'd finally let go of something. Early the next morning, Leo picked me up to see the apartment. The one he mentioned near the office was $2,000 a month, with 1 month's rent as deposit and 3 months paid up front. The apartment was on the 5th floor of an old residential building with no elevator, but it had great natural light. It was a 1-bedroom, 1 living room layout, with a clean kitchen and bathroom. The furniture was simple but complete. Do you like it? Leo asked. It's close to work, the area is quiet, and most importantly, my family doesn't know about this place. It's settled then. He turned to the landlord. Let's sign the contract. After signing the contract and paying the deposit and rent, I finally had a space that was truly my own. Standing in the middle of the empty living room, a strange feeling washed over me. This was the taste of freedom. What do we need to get? Leo looked around. Bedding, toiletries, kitchenware. Let's take it slow. I ran my hand over the bare bed frame. We'll just get the essentials today. We went to a nearby supermarket, pushing our cart through the aisles. Bed sheets, pillows, towels, toothbrushes, watching the cart gradually fill up. I suddenly felt the tangible reality of building a home. How about this one? Leo picked up a blue mug. It's nice, I nodded, then noticed the price tag and put it back. Too expensive, let's just get a cheaper one. He glanced at me, then still put the mug in the cart. You've got to treat yourself sometimes. At checkout, I rushed to pay, but Leo insisted on splitting the bill. You cover the household items. The mug's my housewarming gift to you. Back at the new place, we made the bed and unpacked together. By afternoon, the apartment finally started feeling lived in. Leo boiled water and made me tea in the new mug. A little celebration, he said, raising his disposable cup. New home, new job, new life. I clinked my glass against his, and suddenly felt a lump in my throat. No one has ever celebrated anything for me, not my whole life. Birthdays always got a perfunctory happy birthday. Good exam results were met with don't get cocky. And even my college acceptance was just my father's indifferent remark, just a second-tier university. Thank you. I lowered my head to take a sip of tea, hiding my reddening eyes. Leo pretended not to notice my mood and shifted to business. I'll go with you to report for work tomorrow. We should also inform HR about the police report from yesterday. Just in case your cousin actually shows up to cause trouble. I nodded gratefully. With him around, nothing seemed quite as frightening. That evening, after Leo said goodbye, I sat alone on the floor of my new home, looking around. It was small and simple, but it was mine, a space that belonged entirely to me. My phone buzzed with a text from HR, reminding me what to bring for tomorrow's onboarding. I pulled out my household registration document, ID card, and diploma, checking each one carefully. Suddenly struck by a thought, I opened the voice memo app and cleared my throat. I'm Cora. Today marks 37 days since my rebirth. I've passed the exam, landed a new job, and moved into a new place. They still wanted to control my life, but this time, I broke free. The recording ended, and I saved the file as Rebirth Diary 1:11. Maybe one day, I'll write all this down to tell girls like me, you can break free. You can live life on your own terms. Outside the window, the city lights began to glow in the dusk. I drew the curtains and lay in the fresh bedding, feeling for the first time that I held my destiny in my own hands. Tomorrow would be a brand new day. During my first week at the job, I was almost always the last one to leave the office. The office of the Comprehensive Department at the National Development and Reform Commission was spacious and bright, and my workstation by the window offered a view of the plane trees below. Every morning, I arrive half an hour early to wipe my desk spotless and organize all the documents in their proper places. Cora, are the materials ready? Director Doris leaned out of her office to ask. She's the head of the General Affairs Department, in her early 40s, with short hair and a brisk, no-nonsense way of speaking. Yes, Director Doris. I quickly brought in the sorted documents. They're arranged in chronological order, and the key sections have been highlighted in yellow. Director Doris flipped through them for a moment, then nodded with satisfaction. Good, very thorough, much better than the last intern. I smiled faintly, feeling a wave of relief wash over me. I'd been worried that family issues might affect my work, but it seems I was concerned over nothing. Back at my desk, my phone lit up with a WeChat from Leo. Dinner after work. Let's celebrate getting through your first week. I replied with a smiley face. This week went smoothly thanks to him. He drove me to and from work every day to keep my cousin from causing trouble at the office. Even though my cousin never showed up, that sense of security was truly precious. Quitting time arrived, and colleagues began leaving one after another. I reviewed the materials needed for tomorrow and didn't shut down the computer until everything was confirmed correct. Stepping out of the office building, I found Leo already waiting at the entrance, holding a small bouquet of sunflowers. This is for me, I asked in surprise as I accepted it. Office plants help reduce stress, he said with a smile. Come on, I know a new Hunan restaurant that just opened nearby. We walked side by side along the early autumn street, our shadows stretching long in the setting sun. Leo talked about the documents he'd handled today, while I shared amusing office stories. We chatted as effortlessly as any ordinary young people. The Hunan restaurant had a minimalist decor, and we chose a table by the window. After ordering, Leo suddenly lowered his voice and asked, "Did HR contact you today?" I shook my head. No. Why? My aunt mentioned that a young man went to the HR department a couple of days ago asking about you. He claimed to be your cousin. My water glass nearly slipped from my hand. So he had come after all. HR didn't disclose anything, Leo reassured me, but stay alert. He probably won't give up easily. The food arrived, the aroma of spicy chicken filling the air, but my appetite suddenly vanished. What exactly was my cousin trying to pull? I'd already started the job. What more could he possibly do? Don't worry, Leo said, sensing my anxiety. I'll ask my law school friends tomorrow to see if we can file for a restraining order. I nodded gratefully. Ever since I met Leo, He's always been there for me when I needed him, like a lighthouse in the darkness. After dinner, Leo insisted on walking me home. It started raining on the way, so we shared an umbrella, shoulder to shoulder. The sound of rain pattering on the canopy was strangely comforting. We're here. I stopped at the entrance to my apartment building. Thank you for dinner tonight, and the flowers. Leo didn't speak, just looked at me with a gaze that was both tender and complicated. In the curtain of rain, tiny droplets clung to his eyelashes, and his white shirt was soaked through. Clinging to his shoulders, Cora, he trailed off, his Adam's apple bobbing. I wanted to say, my heart suddenly started racing, my palms growing sweaty. A certain premonition left me both hopeful and afraid. I'm in love with you. The words finally escaped his lips, not as a classmate, and not just as a friend. The rain seemed to grow louder, drumming against my eardrums. My lips parted, but no sound came out. Leo is wonderful, kind, reliable, principled, everything I've ever dreamed of, but I don't know, was all I could finally say. My life is a complete mess right now. Family, work, I understand, Leo said with a strained smile. No need to rush your answer. I just want you to know that whatever you decide, I'll be here for you. After going upstairs, I stood by the window and watched his figure disappear into the curtain of rain. My heart was a whirlwind of emotions. Why are you afraid to accept his feelings? Is it the fear of repeating your mother's mistakes? Or do you feel you don't deserve happiness? The ringtone snapped me out of my thoughts. It was an unfamiliar number. Cora, it's me. My cousin Esme's voice came through. Your mother is sick and keeps calling your name. Can you come back to see her? I froze. What's wrong with her? Her fever just won't break. The doctor says it's pneumonia. My cousin's voice trembled with tears. Uncle asked me to tell you. He said it might have been caused by the upset you gave her. I tightened my grip on the phone, a heavy weight settling in my chest. Mom has always been so healthy. How could she suddenly get pneumonia? But if it's true, which hospital is she in? She's not in the hospital. She's resting at home, my cousin replied. Aunt refused to go, said it's a waste of money. That sounds just like Mom. After a moment's hesitation, I said, I'll come by tomorrow around noon to check on her. As soon as I hung up, I called Aunt Mabel to ask about the situation. She confirmed she'd seen Mom going in and out of the neighborhood clinic these past couple days, but said she seemed to be in good spirits. Your mother even went to the market this afternoon. Doesn't look sick at all. Aunt Mabel lowered her voice. Cora, watch out. This might be a trick. I thanked her and started forming a plan in my mind. If Mom was faking illness to get me home, she must be up to something. But just in case, I'd better check on her. The next afternoon, I took 2 hours off work and caught a cab home. Before going upstairs, I turned on my phone's recording function and set Leo's number to speed dial. The key slid into the lock with that familiar click as I turned it, pushing the door open. I found the apartment silent, curtains drawn, the room dimly lit. Mom, I called out from the doorway. I slowly walked toward my parents' bedroom, the door slightly ajar. Pushing the door open, I saw my mother lying in bed, pale and with her eyes closed. Was she really sick? I moved closer and suddenly caught a whiff of alcohol. On the nightstand sat a half-empty glass of baijiu, next to a thermometer reading 36.5 degrees, a normal temperature. Putting on quite the act, I said coldly. Mother's eyes snapped open. Not a trace of sickness in them. So you finally decided to come home. You wretched girl. I turned to leave but was immediately blocked by father and cousin entering through the doorway. My cousin was holding my job offer letter, the very one I'd kept locked in my drawer. How did they get their hands on it, going through my things without permission? I glared at father. This is my house. I'll search wherever I want, father declared with self-righteous indignation. Perfect timing. Jules needs to talk to you. My cousin waved the paper. Cousin, let's make a deal. You resign voluntarily, and I promise not to expose your dirty laundry at the office. What dirty laundry? I retorted, filial impiety. My cousin grinned. Abandoning your sick parents, shacking up with some random guy, stealing family money. Should I go on? I was trembling with rage. It's all slanderous lies. Who cares about the truth? My cousin shrugged. In the system, reputation is everything. The slightest rumor can ruin your chances of getting a permanent position. Finally, I understood their scheme, to force me to resign through rumors and defamation. That way, My cousin could take my place at the National Development and Reform Commission, or at the very least, destroy my career as payback. Not a chance, I said, enunciating each word deliberately. I will report the situation to my employer and provide evidence. What evidence? My mother suddenly sprang out of bed, showing no sign of being ill. Who would believe you? We're your biological parents. Our word carries more weight than yours. I stared at the three people before me and suddenly felt they were complete strangers. Are these really my family? Are these the people who were supposed to love and protect me? Move aside. I'm leaving. I tried to squeeze past my cousin. He grabbed my wrist. You're not going anywhere until you agree. Let go. I struggled, pulling out my phone and hitting speed dial. My cousin snatched my phone and smashed it on the ground. Trying to call the cops, just then, the door burst open, and Leo stood panting in the doorway. My earlier call had gone through, and he'd heard the entire conversation. Let her go. Leo rushed over and shoved the cousin aside. I've already called the police. They'll be here any minute. The cousin's face darkened, but he quickly sneered. Well, look who's here. The homewrecker. Perfect timing. Let the neighbors see what kind of woman Cora really is. He started shouting loudly, making sure the whole building could hear. Everyone, come and see. Cora has no shame, shacking up with some random man and abandoning her sick parents. Leo shielded me as we moved toward the exit, but several neighbors had already gathered in the hallway, whispering and pointing. I picked up my phone with its shattered screen, my heart aching like it had been stabbed. It wasn't about the phone. It was the humiliation of being shamed in public. On our way downstairs, we ran into the police officers who had just arrived, the same two who had handled the incident when my cousin broke into my rental apartment. After understanding the situation, the police warned my cousin to stop harassing me, but when it came to family disputes, there was little they could do. She's my daughter. I have every right to discipline my own child, the father declared to the police with self-righteous conviction. The older officer sighed and turned to me. Miss, domestic matters aren't something we can easily intervene in, but your parents are getting on in years. Try to talk things out calmly. I gave a bitter smile. In their eyes, this was just ordinary friction between a rebellious daughter and parents who only want what's best for you. No one can see the invisible wounds and control. Leo held my hand the whole way back to the office. My phone was broken, so he used his to text our supervisor Doris, explaining the situation and requesting half a day off. Don't worry, he reassured me. Rumors stop with the wise. Your boss isn't that kind of person. I nodded, but felt uneasy inside. Reputation is everything within the system. If my parents actually showed up at my workplace to make a scene, that afternoon, I still decided to go back to work. When I pushed open the office door, my colleagues' conversation abruptly stopped, and their gazes turned toward me, full of curiosity. My heart sank. The news had spread faster than I'd imagined. Cora, Director Doris called me into her office, closed the door. I sat down nervously, my palms sweating. Director Doris slid a document toward me. There's a provincial training next month, and I'm planning to send you. I was stunned, completely caught off guard by this. What's the matter? Not willing? Director Doris raised an eyebrow. No, it's not that. I quickly shook my head. It's just what? Worried about the gossip. Director Doris snorted lightly. I've been in this industry for 20 years. There's nothing I haven't seen. Just focus on your work. Everything else is trivial. My eyes welled up, and I almost burst into tears. So there are still people who value competence over connections, and facts over rumors. After work, Leo took me to buy a new phone, while the salesperson was pitching various features. I noticed him eyeing a pair of matching couple phone cases. Do you like that one? I asked softly. He said with slight embarrassment, it just feels like a perfect match. In the past, I would have pretended not to hear it, but today, after experiencing betrayal from family and trust from my boss, I suddenly felt the urge to be brave. Let's get it then. I picked up the light blue phone case. I'll take this one. Leo's eyes lit up as he quickly grabbed the navy blue one, like two high school students. We shyly yet excitedly put matching phone cases on our devices as we stepped out of the mall. The sunset was perfect. Leo mustered the courage to take my hand, and I didn't pull away. I'm not sure I can be a good girlfriend, I whispered, with my family situation being so complicated. It's okay, he said, squeezing my hand. We'll face this together. Back home, I gazed at this small apartment, my first real home. A new phone sat on the table, a work training notice hung on the wall, and a sunflower from Leo rested by the bedside. Though the road ahead remains tough, in this moment, I feel a long-lost sense of peace and hope. My phone vibrated with a message from Aunt Mabel. Cora, your mother is going around the neighborhood bad-mouthing you and saying she's going to speak with your boss. Should I help explain things to her? I replied, thanks, Auntie, but that won't be necessary. The truth will speak for itself. I set down my phone and walked over to the window. 12. The night was deep, but the city lights still shone brightly. No matter how much my family tries to stop me, this time I'm going to follow my own path. On my first day back at the office after training, I could sense something was off. Conversations in the hallway would abruptly stop when I walked by. In the cafeteria, people were whispering and pointing at me. Even Sister Wang, who I normally got along well with, just gave me a quick greeting before avoiding me. Director Doris wants to see you, at 3 in the afternoon. Xiao Zhang from the general office poked his head in to tell me, his eyes darting nervously. I straightened my collar and knocked on Director Doris's office door. Come in. Director Doris looked more serious than usual, with a folder lying on her desk. I noticed her fingers drumming lightly on the table, a telltale sign she was displeased. Cora, have a seat. She gestured to the chair across from her. I sat down, my heart racing. I'd excelled during training and even received the top trainee award. This wasn't the reaction I expected. Do you know why I called you in? Director Doris got straight to the point. I shook my head, my throat tightening. She slid a document across the table. Someone has filed a real name report accusing you of cheating on the employment exam, and they included what they claim is evidence. My fingers trembled slightly as I opened the file. Inside was a signed by Jules, along with several blurry surveillance screenshots, capturing the exact moment my mother had barged into my room carrying a bowl of sweet soup during the online exam. This isn't cheating, I blurted out. The proctor ruled it as a violation back then, and my score was invalidated on the spot. This is footage from the retake. I locked the door. No one came in. Director Doris frowned. A retake. That's when I realized I'd slipped up. I'd mixed up the exam from before my rebirth with the one after, but there was no way Director Doris could know that. What I meant was, I was very careful this time during the exam. I locked the door so no one would disturb me. I quickly explained. Director Doris looked me over and said, the whistleblower claims to be your cousin and provided a detailed account of your family conflicts. He said you'd stop at nothing to get ahead, even if it meant cutting ties with your own family. I clenched my fists, my nails digging deep into my palms. My cousin wasn't just trying to ruin my future, he was out to tarnish my character too. Director Doris, that's not how it happened, I said, taking a deep breath. Can I present my evidence? She nodded. You have 10 minutes. I pulled out my phone and found that long-cherished recording, the conversation from exam day when my mother tried to barge in by falsely claiming a pipe had burst outside, and my firm refusal. The recording clearly captured my mother's deception and my resolve. After listening, Director Doris's expression softened. So your family intentionally disrupted your exam? Yes. I pulled up another recording, the one of my cousin threatening me in my rented apartment. They want my cousin to pass the exam, so they've been sabotaging me all along. Director Doris leaned back in her chair and let out a long sigh. Bringing family conflicts into the workplace creates a very negative impression. I understand, but I didn't start this. My voice trembled. I never intended to bring personal matters into work. I believe in your capabilities. Director Doris closed the folder, but the complaint has already been filed. The disciplinary committee will speak with you tomorrow. You'd better prepare more substantial evidence. My legs felt like jelly as I stepped out of the office, forcing me to lean against the wall for a moment to steady myself. My cousin really pulled a dirty trick. Attacking my professional integrity is the ultimate taboo within the system. My phone buzzed with a message from Leo. Heard about the complaint. Want to meet tonight and figure out our next move? I replied with a simple, okay. Feeling a slight sense of relief, at least I wasn't fighting this battle alone. After work, Leo was waiting for me at the back entrance of our workplace. He was wearing a simple white shirt and dress pants, his silhouette sharp in the sunlight. Spotting me, he quickly walked over and naturally took my bag. How did it go? He asked in a low voice. Director Doris wants me to report to the disciplinary inspection team tomorrow to explain the situation. I rubbed my temples. My cousin is so despicable. He actually took a clip from the surveillance footage completely out of context. Leo squeezed my hand and said, "Don't worry, we'll figure this out together." We went to his place. It was my first time there. The apartment was small but tidy, with shelves lined with books on law and public administration. He poured me a glass of water and opened his laptop. I looked into it, he said, pulling up a few documents. "Once the reporting process is initiated, the investigation must run its course, but if we can prove the complainant acted with malicious intent, it could work in your favor." "How can we prove it? Do you still have those transaction records you mentioned earlier, and the chat history between your mother and cousin?" I nodded and pulled up the backup from my phone's cloud storage. After examining them carefully, Leo's eyes lit up. "This is enough to prove their financial connection. Your cousin reported you not out of public duty, but to get back at you for refusing to help him cheat. But, won't this make things worse?" I hesitated. "Submitting this evidence would mean openly cutting ties with my family." Leo looked at me with steady eyes. "Cora, this isn't your fault. They're the ones who kept crossing the line. You're just protecting yourself." I bit my lip. Right, hadn't I sworn from the moment I was reborn that I wouldn't let people walk all over me anymore? "Okay, I'll submit this evidence tomorrow." Leo suddenly dropped to one knee and pulled a small box from the drawer. My heart skipped a beat. Was he about to propose? "Don't be nervous," he smiled, opening the box to reveal a key. "This is a spare key to my place. No matter what happens, this will always be your safe haven." I took the key, tears welling up in my eyes. All my life, I never had a safe space to call my own until I met him. The next morning, at the disciplinary inspection team's office, 3 stern-faced officials sat behind a long table and asked me to state my case. I calmly recounted what really happened on exam day and provided both the audio recording and transfer records. "So you're saying," the female official in the middle concluded, "your family deliberately sabotaged your exam to help your cousin get selected, and then filed a malicious report after you succeeded?" "Yes," I nodded. "I also have a recording of my cousin admitting that if I withdrew my candidacy, he could take my spot at the Development and Reform Commission." After reviewing all the evidence, the disciplinary committee members exchanged glances. "We understand the situation now." The female official closed her notebook. "Thank you for your cooperation. The organization will handle this matter fairly." Stepping out of the office, I breathed a deep sigh of relief. Whatever the outcome, at least I had spoken the truth. A week later, the decision was announced. The disciplinary inspection team concluded the allegations were false and constituted a malicious report, affirming my professional competence and integrity. Though not explicitly stated, I heard my cousin had been warned against further disrupting the normal operations of the government office. On the very same day, another piece of good news arrived. I was nominated as a candidate for Deputy Section Chief of the General Office, with a democratic evaluation scheduled for next week. "Congratulations!" Leo exclaimed excitedly over the phone. "I knew you could do it. I'm just a candidate. There's still the evaluation to get through," I said modestly, though inwardly I was thrilled. On the day of the democratic evaluation, I wore my most formal navy blue suit and delivered a work report to all my colleagues in the office. When discussing the work achievements of the past 6 months, I saw the approving look in Director Doris's eyes. The voting ended and the vote counting began. My heart was pounding so hard it felt like it would leap out of my chest, and my palms were drenched in sweat. "Cora, 35 votes in favor, 2 against, and 1 abstention," the host announced. "Approved." Applause broke out. I stood up and bowed in gratitude, my eyes welling up. At that moment, all the grievances and struggles felt worth it. After work, Leo was waiting for me at the entrance of our workplace, holding a large bouquet of roses. "Deputy Section Chief Cora, would you do me the honor of having dinner with me?" he asked playfully. I took the flowers and couldn't help but laugh. Of course. He took me to an upscale restaurant downtown. After we were seated, the server brought 2 glasses of champagne. "Cheers to your promotion," Leo said, raising his glass. "And to our perseverance," I replied, gently clinking my glass against his. After a few rounds of drinks, Leo suddenly turned serious and said, "Cora, there's something I've been meaning to ask you." You mentioned retaking the exam, and said your last attempt was flagged for cheating." He hesitated. But as far as I know, civil service exams only allow one attempt per year. How did you retake it? I froze, that loophole I'd never properly explained. I never expected him to remember it so clearly. 13. I set down my glass, unsure how to begin. Tell him I'd been reborn. Would he believe me? Or just think I was crazy? It's all right, Leo gently interrupted my inner turmoil. You can tell me when you're ready. I just want you to know, whatever secret you're carrying, I'll accept it. His acceptance made my eyes sting with tears. Maybe someday I'll tell him the whole truth, but not now. Thank you. I held his hand. Just know that meeting you is the greatest blessing of my life. I stood at the podium during the launch ceremony of the New Buds charitable organization, with the audience filled with distinguished guests and media reporters. As the founder, I shared the original vision behind establishing this organization dedicated to supporting underprivileged women. Every girl deserves the right to choose her own path, regardless of her family background or origins. I glanced at Leo in the front row, who gave me a thumbs up. New Sprouts will provide legal aid, psychological counseling, and vocational training to help more women break free from adversity and gain independence. The room erupted in applause. During the post-event interview, a reporter asked what inspired me to start this organization. Personal experience. I replied succinctly, I was once a victim of son preference mentality, and I know that pain all too well. After the event, Leo helped me pack up the materials. He's now a deputy division chief in the municipal party committee's propaganda department, and I've been promoted to section chief of the general office. We got married last year, holding a simple wedding with blessings from both our workplaces. Your parents are here, Leo whispered suddenly. I looked up and saw my parents standing in the corner of the venue, holding the invitation I had sent them a few days ago. I hadn't seen them in 3 years. My mother's hair had turned mostly gray, and my father's back was slightly hunched, making them look much older than their actual age. Should we go over? Leo asked. I hesitated for a moment, then nodded. As we drew closer, Mother spoke first, her voice trembling slightly. Cora, you handled that well, thank you, I replied calmly. Father rubbed his hands together, his gaze shifting uneasily. We just wanted to check in. An awkward silence hung in the air. Finally, my mother took an envelope from her bag. This is a small token of our appreciation for your organization. I accepted it without opening it. I'll have our finance department issue a donation receipt. Another silence fell. Leo chimed in at just the right moment. Have you two eaten yet? Would you like to join us? No, that's quite all right, my father said quickly, waving his hand. We just stopped by to see how things are. We'll be on our way now. As they turned to leave, Mother suddenly looked back. Cora, I'm sorry. I didn't respond, just stood there watching their stooped figures disappear into the crowd. Some wounds can't be healed with a simple apology. Some fractures last forever. But at least I'm no longer imprisoned by hatred. You okay? Leo put his arm around my shoulder. I leaned against him and suddenly smiled with relief. Let's go home. Home. This word once evoked feelings of coldness and hurt, but now it's brimming with warmth and security. In the cozy nest Leo and I share, sunflowers bloom across the balcony, our professional books fill the study, and our wedding photo graces the nightstand. This is the family I chose for myself. The happiness I built with my own hands, before getting in the car. I glanced back at the words, New Buds, on the venue banner. A tender sprout breaks through the soil. It may face wind and rain, but will ultimately grow into a towering tree, just like me. The end. Story 2. My parents cut off my arm and threw me out to attract the attention of the zombie horde in order to save my brother. In just 1 minute, I was gnawed until there was not a single piece of meat left on my body, and even my skeleton was torn apart. When I opened my eyes again, I was reborn. I was reborn a week before the zombie outbreak. This time, I resolutely blocked my parents' numbers. After moving out, I grouped up with my best friend to stock up on supplies and reinforced our house. When the zombies broke out, we huddled in the house and became happy people enjoying rice noodles. Across the way, my parents and brother were fighting over a piece of compressed biscuit. My brother, give it to me, I'm starving to death, I'll eat it first. My father punched and grabbed it and swallowed it in 2 bites. 1. I was bitten to death by zombies. The pain of the flesh being torn off brutally is something I will never forget for the rest of my life. After being reborn, I touched my living body and was so excited that tears streamed down my face. What are you crying for? Isn't it just using your savings to buy a house for your brother? Anyway, you doctors have high salaries, you can just save for a couple more years. I looked up and met my mother's displeased gaze. This scene, these words, I quickly realized that I had been reborn a week before the zombie outbreak. On this day, my mother stole my money to buy a house for my brother. As a result, I had an argument with my mother. Compared to the excitement and dissatisfaction in my previous life, I was much calmer this time. I put down my chopsticks and bowls and said indifferently, I'll give you my life once as a repayment for more than 20 years of your upbringing. From now on, we're even. You, what did you say? My mother was taken aback for a moment, then rolled her eyes at me. It's just spending a little of your money. Why are you bringing up life and death? I was too lazy to explain and just got up and walked out. My mother, just like in my previous life, didn't try to stop me, because she was sure that as her daughter, I wouldn't really hold a grudge against her. But that was the old me. After the zombie outbreak in my previous life, in order to exchange for a little food, she threw me to several men to be humiliated at will, and in order to save my brother, she cut off my arm and pushed me out of the villa, making me the target for the zombies to bite. After experiencing all this, I was already completely disappointed in this mother of mine. The cold wind howled, I wiped my face, the end of the world was approaching, and I didn't have much time to immerse myself in grief. Now, there was only one thought in my mind, I don't want such a family anymore, and I want to survive in this apocalypse, too. Having experienced the difficult situation of lacking food and water in the apocalypse, I knew all too well how important supplies were. The first thing to do was stock up on supplies. However, I also faced a huge problem. I had no money. My mother had stolen all my money to buy a house for my brother. Since they were heartless, don't blame me for being injustice. I secretly went back home and stole the bank card that my mother had hidden under the bed. The password was easy to guess, 911227. It was my brother's birthday. My mother stole 100,000 yuan from me to buy a house for my brother, so I transferred 100,000 yuan from her account into mine. As soon as the money arrived in my account, my mother called, "You little wretch. You've got some nerve. How dare you touch the money I saved for your brother's wife? I'm telling you, transfer it back to me right away, otherwise, believe it or not, I'll call the police and accuse you of theft and send you to jail." She was extremely angry, and her voice was deafening. I instinctively held the phone away from my ear. After a while, I said leisurely, "Do as you like. If you dare to call the police, I'll also tell them about you stealing my money. If we go to jail, we'll go together, we won't be alone." It seemed that I had been too weak in daily life. When I suddenly became tough, the person on the other end of the phone was a bit stunned. In an instant, she started cursing, "You good for nothing, how dare you threaten me, you." This time, I didn't pay attention to her and directly hung up the phone. I blocked her number as well. I also blocked my useless father and my mooching brother, all together. Instantly, I felt the world became much quieter. After doing all this, I quickly used my phone to withdraw 30,000 yuan each from Jibei, 60 IOU, and JD, but this money was still far from enough to buy supplies, so I sneaked back home and called my wealthy best friend to come and pay. My best friend, Nora, became an orphan when her parents died in a plane crash during a trip 3 years ago, and she inherited a large fortune. We grew up together since we were little and were the best of friends. Before I was gnawed to pieces by zombies in my previous life, Nora was the only one who rushed out with an axe to save me. When she fell beside me, covered in blood and flesh, she still said to me, "Nina, don't be afraid, sister is here." The past events were vivid in my mind, and it made my eyes sting. "Nina, it's so good to see you alive again." After getting out of the car, Nora suddenly hugged me and choked up. I was stunned. When I looked down and met my best friend's excited gaze, I knew that my best friend had been reborn just like me. We hugged each other tightly, and tears streamed down our faces. In this life, we made a promise to survive together. My best friend and I composed ourselves and immediately went to the wholesale market to stock up on supplies. The goods were sold in large quantities there, and it wouldn't cause unnecessary trouble. Nora was driving, and I began to calculate. In the previous life, when the zombies broke out, there was no water, no electricity. Lack of clothes and food, and let alone medicine. In this life, we must stock up on 3 truckloads of mineral water. As for electricity, Nora's villa had already installed solar panels for power generation before, but just in case, we still had to buy 2 generators. To save electricity, I also specially bought 5 large gas cylinders and a gas stove. It would be quite nice to cook some dishes on it. Essential medicines were indispensable, and disinfectant water was even more necessary. Of course, rice, flour, cooking oil, and various seasonings couldn't be lacking either. Give me 100 boxes of luocefen. Nora glanced at my plan and said faintly, my best friend and I didn't plan to fight when the zombies broke out, we just wanted to huddle and survive. These appetizing instant snacks were essential. With this in mind, I decisively added rice noodles and Northeast-style old-fashioned spicy hot pot to the list. Spicy crayfish, which was a great snack while watching dramas. The lemon boneless chicken feet that my best friend loved, and the Fat House Happy Water couldn't be missing either. 100 boxes of each of the above. I loved 500 gene of dried sausages and cured meat each, and 100 boxes of vacuum-packed chicken, duck, and fish. 100 boxes of instant noodles in various flavors in buckets, 300 boxes of toilet paper, 100 boxes of sanitary napkins, and 100 boxes of facial cleansing wipes, 50 sets of shampoo, shower gel, toothpaste, and toothbrushes. After arriving at the market, I gave the list to the storekeeper and asked him to prepare the goods according to the list and load them onto the truck. Then my best friend and I went our separate ways. She went to buy vegetables and fruits, while I went to get medicines and weapons. When I came back, my best friend was holding a little pig and directing the workers to load the goods. I turned my head and saw that a truck was already filled with Chinese cabbages, scallions, pumpkins, winter melons, and potatoes. On another truck, apples, pears, and fruits that were easy to store like pomegranates, longans, and pomelos were also stuffed more than half full. Not only that, there were still a large number of fruit dried in various flavors and canned goods that hadn't been loaded onto the truck. There were also plenty of side dishes that went well with rice, such as spicy cabbage, spicy lotus root slices, lao ganma chili sauce, spicy enoki mushrooms, bibimbap sauce, kelp shreds, and salted duck eggs. I was stunned by the wide variety of these goods. Nora proudly pointed to the truck on the other side and showed off to me, sister, this is just the beginning, look. Here's the snack kingdom that I've conquered for you. I saw that a truck was also filled with various snacks like potato chips, marinated duck necks, Oreo cookies, cheese bread, almonds, spiced melon seeds, chocolate, lollipops, and milk tea. I gave her a thumbs up in admiration, but looking at the piglet in her arms, I asked, what's this for? I'm bored staying here and surviving. I'm raising a little pet to pass the time. Nora said it very seriously. I was shocked, sister. People can't even feed themselves in the apocalypse, and you still have the mood to raise a pig. 3. I didn't agree to raising a pig at first, but I couldn't stand Nora's nagging. Nina, a pet pig won't grow big, and when we're bored and dull later, we can treat it like raising a son. Pet pigs are really fun. If you don't believe me, look it up online. I really took out my phone and searched. I typed in Baidu. Can a pet pig be made into a roasted suckling pig? The answer, yes. I glanced at the somewhat fleshy piglet and compromised. Well, it's not a bad idea to raise one. My best friend, who didn't know what I had searched, stroked the pig's head and smiled from ear to ear. Son, Mom is taking you home. I then silently continued to search on Baidu, various common ways to cook pigs. I don't know if it was because of a guilty conscience, but I always felt that the piglet seemed to give me a glare. As for the delivery time, we chose 11 p.m. this way. We could avoid being noticed. After arranging all this, we took a taxi back to the village first. Our village was located in the suburbs of the 5th Ring Road, next to a mountain. There were red leaves on the mountain and mountain spring water. Because it was very close to the city, there were many tenants from other places who came to Beijing to seek opportunities. It was really a mixed place. My best friend's house was at the foot of the mountain, a self-built 3-story small villa. We chose this place as our base to huddle and survive. First, her house had solar panels. Second, her house was connected to pipes and could directly get mountain spring water. Third, in our previous life, We also discovered that there was actually an air raid shelter connected to the back of her kitchen. This was very beneficial for us to store things. Even if the zombies came in, we could hide in the air raid shelter and continue to huddle and survive. On the way back, we discussed changing the doors and windows to explosion-proof glass doors. Not only that, but we also hired someone to install a monitoring system and an alarm system. This way, we could observe the outside situation without any blind spots. Once someone touched the wall or courtyard of my house, the alarm bell would ring, and we could enter a combat-ready state at any time. And I planned to turn the third floor into a vegetable garden, plant some vegetables myself, and build a chicken coop to raise chickens and get eggs. Even if we were short of supplies later, we could still be self-sufficient for a while with this. When I was carrying the purchased soil materials and various vegetable seeds upstairs at night, my father came to me. He was smoking and looking at me, sighing. "Nina, quickly return the money to your mother and kneel down and apologize to her, by the way. Then we can still recognize you as our daughter. Otherwise, if you don't recognize me, that's fine." I raised my hands in agreement. "You can break off the relationship, but you have to pay back the money I spent raising you all these years." My mother in the car got angry, jumped out of the car, and brazenly ransacked the card and several hundred yuan in my bag. I watched her robber-like behavior and was so angry that my head was buzzing, but I didn't step forward to stop her. It wasn't that I was cowardly. It was because I had already known that she would steal my money. And I had already used that 100,000 yuan to stock up on supplies. Now it was just an empty card. If she wanted to take it, she could take it. "You little wretch, I'm waiting for the day when you kneel and beg me to come back home." After taking the card, my mother left without looking back. I didn't plan to tell them about the end of the world. Don't say I'm vicious. What they did to me in my previous life, not taking the opportunity to get revenge on them, is already my greatest kindness. In this life, whether they live or die depends on their fate. However, I was also very curious about how my parents would survive this man-eating apocalypse without the way of selling me to exchange for supplies this time. For, as the end of the world was approaching, my best friend and I didn't dare to delay at all. We worked overtime to stock up on supplies. Oh, my best friend also stocked up on pig feed. I then silently took the barbecue seasoning and suckling pig marinating seasoning. Thinking that we couldn't waste electricity and gas, I bought charcoal and a stove. We could roast the pigs slowly then. However, before we could replace the glass of the doors and windows of the building, a zombie biting incident occurred in our city. The first video was sent out by someone who ran a breakfast shop in the bustling area of Shiyuan in our village. This morning, two couples came to our shop and got into a fight. The man bit the woman to death. Then a short video was sent along with it. As soon as the video was opened, we saw a guy pounce on his girlfriend and bite off her flesh bite by bite. Goodness, what kind of grudge could there be that he actually bit the girl to death? This guy is so cruel. Did you call the police? Lao Zhang's son. The villagers were all discussing it animatedly, but they all thought it was a tragedy caused by a quarrel between young lovers. However, when my best friend and I saw it, our faces suddenly turned pale, because we knew that this wasn't just a murder case. This was the beginning of the apocalypse. 5. In my previous life, my best friend and I were busy at work and didn't pay attention to the messages in the village group. So we didn't know that the zombies had actually quietly started here at this time. Now it wasn't safe to go out, and we could be bitten at any time. The most critical thing was that it was only the third day since we were reborn. Although we had stocked up on supplies, the explosion-proof glass doors and windows hadn't been installed yet. The current doors and windows would break with just one smash, and it was very unsafe. What should we do? We haven't replaced the doors and windows yet. Having experienced the horror of the apocalypse, my best friend, who was holding the piglet, turned pale. We've bought too many things these days. There must be neighbors who saw us moving things in and out. After the zombies break out, we will definitely become the primary target to be robbed. I quickly soothed Nora. Don't panic. I'll contact the manufacturer immediately and pay the express fee. We must have the doors and windows replaced today. After I paid an express fee of 60,000 yuan. The manufacturer finally gave a definite answer that they would come to install our doors and windows tomorrow. After doing all this, my best friend and I set out on the road to stock up on supplies again without stopping. She bought a pigsty and a pig toilet. I silently took a pig-killing knife, and hid it aside before she could notice, during the breaks. I also specifically searched on Baidu about how to kill a pig and how to wash pig intestines, by the way. I bought some chili pepper seedlings and planted them in my vegetable garden. Stir-fried chili peppers with pig intestines should be very delicious then. We also bought 2 air purifiers to ensure the clean and odorless air indoors. We also bought a telescope, a drone, and some electric batons, iron balls, strong sulfuric acid, and various slingshots and marbles, etc., for scouting the enemy's situation and for long-distance attacks and defenses, in the evening. The second and third cases of zombie biting incidents were reported one after another. People realized that things were not simple, but they still didn't realize that the end of the world was coming. They thought it was a new type of virus. My best friend and I didn't try to remind everyone that it was the zombies coming. Once we reminded them, our moving things in and out these days and the need to replace the glass would make us stand out, especially after the apocalypse. And it might even bring us a fatal disaster. The most important rule in the apocalypse was, don't be a saint. Saints die the most miserable. Early the next morning, with my best friend and I eagerly anticipating, the explosion-proof glass doors and the installation workers finally arrived. After a whole day, they were finally installed. Not only that, but I also switched on the electric fence around the courtyard wall, looking at the now impregnable small villa. My best friend and I finally felt a sense of relief. The little pig, seeing that we were happy, also happily spun around. Son, my best friend stroked its pig's head and played with it. I stared at its strong body and all I could think about was, the size of the barbecue grill I bought seems to be about right. It should be enough. After stocking up on supplies for several days, my best friend and I were completely exhausted. At the moment, we were lying on the sofa in a disheveled state. Not wanting to sleep at all. Nina, you little wretch, you actually tricked me with an empty card. Get out here right now. Suddenly, my mother's angry pounding on the door came from the monitoring system. I didn't want to pay attention to her and closed my eyes to continue resting. However, my mother's terrified screams came from the computer. Her arrogant roar just now had now turned into a cry filled with fear and sobs. Nina, hurry up and open the door for Mom, quick. Not only did my mother's trembling cries come from the computer, but there were also some moans mixed in. I sensed that something was wrong and walked over to the monitor to check. Under the dim streetlights, a zombie was chasing an ant covered in blood. The ant ran a few steps and was then pounced on by the zombie. A piece of flesh was bitten off her neck, blood gushed out, and immediately the whole person was on the verge of death. The ants who had just been dancing square dance were now fleeing in panic. The zombies had descended upon this village again. 6. Nina, open the door, open the door. My mother's voice came from the computer again. In the monitor, she was already deathly pale from fear, and her hands were desperately pounding on the door. Nina, open the door for Mom quickly. Nina, don't look, afraid that I would soften my heart. My best friend quickly covered my eyes. Don't worry. I won't make the same mistake again. I turned around and looked at my best friend, my eyes full of determination. Come on, let's go have hot pot. My best friend pulled me towards the kitchen. Since we were tired tonight and didn't want to stir-fry dishes, we chose hot pot, beef tallow hot pot. It was filled with the mutton, tripe, duck blood, and crispy pork strips that my best friend and I loved to eat. After the lid of the pot was opened, the rich aroma of the base sauce wafted out. Extremely alluring. Uncle Lee, what's wrong with you? My mother's screams came from outside the door again. My best friend and I instinctively looked downstairs. The uncles and aunts who had been bitten while dancing square dance suddenly got up from the ground. Their strange postures were like marionettes, stiff and terrifying. With the experience of the end of the world in my previous life, I knew very well that they had mutated. My mother had no memories of her previous life. When she saw this scene, she crouched in the corner and wailed, bang. Just when I thought my mother would be gnawed to the bone by the zombies, a loud noise suddenly came from downstairs. I took a closer look. I saw my father driving a van crashing into the zombie horde, knocking them away. My mother almost scrambled into the car. Then the car roared and rushed out of the zombie horde. Darn it, she actually got away. She's lucky. Looking in the direction where the car fled, Nora gritted her teeth in disappointment. Otherwise, let your son-preferring mother also taste the excruciating pain of having her flesh torn apart by the zombies. When mentioning these things, Nora's palm involuntarily clenched. Nora had been afraid of pain since she was a child. Even if she just scraped her finger a little, she would cry and whine to me for a long time. She was such a delicate person. I couldn't imagine how much courage she had used to rush out and save me in my previous life. With red eyes, I hugged her tightly, and tears fell from my eyes one by one. You fool, you were so afraid of pain. Why did you still come to save me? You could have been fine. What silly words are you saying? I promised to look out for you. How could I just watch you being bullied and do nothing? Nora's eyes softened a bit, but my tears were like a dam bursting. In just a few minutes, the village entrance that had just been lively suddenly fell into silence. It was desolate, only a group of zombies were wandering through the streets like lost souls. It's so fast, that dark period has come again. Holding the piglet, Nora couldn't help but sigh. Yeah, the days of zombies eating people and people eating people had come again. Only by experiencing it can one know how oppressive, uneasy, desperate, and helpless those days were. And how dark and terrifying that period was. The bloody scene really spoils the appetite. I closed the shutters and put some meat into Nora's bowl. I believe that in this life, we will never make the same mistakes again. Exactly, Nora nodded repeatedly. Sister, we must huddle and survive together, and bring our dear son with us. As she spoke, she looked down at the piglet in her arms with affection. Bring him along. I checked. It is said that husband and wife lung slices are also an excellent dish. Thinking about it this way, I suddenly felt that raising a pig wasn't so bad. Before the internet was cut off, I must download all kinds of cooking methods for pork and pig offal. 7. When the zombies broke out in the village, the group chat in the village went crazy. What's going on here? Did some old man in the village snatch a dance partner and cause a fight? Hey, what kind of eyes do you have upstairs? Does a fight in your family involve biting the neck? This is clearly rabies. How terrible it is to be ignorant. Does rabies make people bite others? Everyone was chatting and discussing. Some people said it was rabies, and some people suspected it was being possessed by evil spirits. Surprisingly, no one thought it was the arrival of the zombies. After all, having grown up in the village, after some discussion, Nora still reminded the villagers, what if it's really the end of the world? I think everyone had better not go out and stock up on more food and drinks just in case. It was originally out of kindness, but unexpectedly, it led to a lot of ridicule. Ha ha ha, the end of the world. You must have watched too many end of the world movies. Exactly, scaremongering. These were still the nicer things to say. Some people even thought that we had bought too many things a few days ago and were trying to sell them to make a fortune. Girl, people's hearts are made of flesh. We're all from the same village, and you have no moral bottom line just to make some money. I think she was probably led astray by that ungrateful Nina. Last night, when those ants were biting people, didn't Nina just stand by and watch her mother's life in danger? Nina is so heartless. Her mother raised her for so long and used a little of her money, and she really holds a grudge. Her family was so scared last night. When they came to their senses this morning, they sent more than a dozen voice messages scolding in the group, and the words were really harsh. Tisk tisk tsk, birds of a feather flock together. These two rotten pieces of meat are together. Soon, my best friend and I were inundated with criticism. Nora was so angry that she almost vomited blood. She suddenly threw her phone aside, and it made her piglet squeal. Darn it. These people are just like the dog that bit Lu Dongbin. They can't recognize a kind gesture. Forget it. If they don't listen to the advice, they can just wait to be bitten to death by the zombies. After this incident, my best friend and I never mentioned the zombies again. We just silently continued to huddle and survive. The villagers were quite optimistic at first, but then, as news of zombie biting incidents kept breaking out both at home and abroad, people began to get nervous. A few days later, the military couldn't even be reached. There was a global power outage and water cut off. In our village, there were zombies everywhere on the streets. The food and troops that were supposed to come for support hadn't arrived yet. The villagers began to realize that something was wrong, and everyone stayed indoors waiting for rescue. But the days were really tough. Half a month after the zombie outbreak, many people had run out of their stocked food, and some people began to question the village cadres. Didn't they say that support would come from above? It's been so long. Why hasn't it arrived yet? I've eaten the last grain of rice in my house. if it doesn't come soon, I'll have to go and bite the zombies. I've run out of food at home too, and I have a 1-year-old child. When will the food be airdropped? The surviving village cadres could only try their best to soothe people's emotions and said that the reinforcements would come soon, but my best friend and I knew that wasn't the case. The reinforcements wouldn't come so soon, at least. There wouldn't be any support within the next 3 months. The end of the world had broken out globally, and even the military couldn't escape this disaster. It was in complete chaos. Now, waiting for rescue wasn't an option. We could only save ourselves. My best friend and I originally thought that we could just huddle and survive, but unexpectedly, trouble came to us soon. Half a month after the zombie outbreak, many people in the village had run out of food and supplies. Including my parents and my brother, they were so hungry that they started eating tree bark. At this time, the communication hadn't been cut off yet. They used my brother's phone to call Nora. Nina, you and Nora went to the supermarket and bought a lot of things some time ago. You must have a lot of stockpiles. Anyway, you can't finish eating them all. Hurry up and send some to me and your father. We're almost starving to death. On the phone, my mother spoke feebly due to hunger. But she still had an ordering tone, as if I owed her by nature. I laughed. Are you dreaming? Not to mention that we don't have food. Even if we did, why should we send it to you? My mother was unhappy when she heard this and shouted, Nina, I'm your mother. When you stole my money from my brother, did you remember that you were my mother? Now that you have no food, you remember that you have a daughter. I thought her self-righteousness was ridiculous. Too lazy to have a verbal fight with her, I directly hung up the phone. I also blocked the numbers of the 3 of them in my best friend's phone again. I thought that after being rejected by me, they would give up, but I overlooked the darkness of people's hearts in troubled times. In the middle of the night, my best friend and I were suddenly awakened by the ear-piercing siren from the computer. This sound was from the security alarm function, which would only go off when an outsider touched our security net. My best friend and I quickly went to the monitor and, as expected, saw 3 people sneaking around and climbing over our courtyard wall. When we zoomed in on the monitor, it turned out to be my father, my brother, and my mother, because the iron net was snagging them. My father and my brother were using tools to try to cut through my iron net. My mother was cursing in a low voice beside them. You little wretch, Nina, you have food but won't give it to us. When we get in, I'll not only take all their food but also give you a good beating after I'm full. You've really gone too far. 9. My best friend and I finally understood this time. This family of 3 couldn't succeed with soft tactics, so they were going to rob us openly. It seemed that they were really starving. They're incredibly shameless. Holding the piglet, Nora was so angry that she wished she could jump out of the monitor and beat those 3 people to death with a bat. I shook my head. There was no need to be that troublesome. I pressed a button, and the electric fence was immediately electrified. My brother and my father outside immediately twitched violently, and smoke was coming out of their heads. Nora immediately gave me a thumbs up. That's a great move, Charlie. What's wrong with you two? My mother didn't know what was going on and reached out to help my brother. The moment she touched my brother, Nora was quick as a flash and snatched the remote control from my hand. She frantically pressed the button to increase the power. You dare to have ideas about me, I'll electrocute you 3 pests to death. Zzzzz. There was a piercing sound from the computer. And the 3 people on the screen twitched so much that their eyes rolled back. When they stopped, their hair was all fluffed up like an explosion, and they all slumped on the roof of our old box truck. Mom, that good-for-nothing Nina actually installed an electric fence. Charlie, who almost became roasted meat, still acted like a spoiled child and nestled into my mother's arms. My mother glared at me hatefully and gritted her teeth. That bitch. It seems she was well prepared. What should we do then? I'm starving to death. I want to eat. Wah, Nina won't answer the phone and won't let us in. Now we can only think of other ways. When we have enough energy, we'll come up with a way to deal with this ungrateful wretch. My mother gave the monitor a vicious look and then sneakily climbed back into the car before the zombies noticed. Seeing their appearance, Nora happily stuffed another steamed bun into the chubby piglet. Ha ha ha, look at their pathetic looks. They still wanted to rob us. Next time they come, we'll make sure they never leave. If they don't cause trouble for us, someone else will surely suffer. Looking at them going to the opposite community, I had a bad feeling. Nora sighed, but we didn't dwell too much on our self-blame. In troubled times, We couldn't care about too many things, we just wanted to protect ourselves. After being disturbed by my mother and the rest of the family, my best friend and I didn't feel like sleeping anymore. This also made me realize that I couldn't turn off the electric fence to save electricity. I immediately turned on the electric fence to be always on. After doing this, I also brought out the slingshot and bow and arrow weapons and placed them beside the bed for easy access in case of a sneak attack. In the apocalypse, it wasn't just zombies eating people, people also ate people. After doing all this, it was already 3 a.m. Nina, come quick, I picked a 3-0-sized hairy crab for you, it's full of roe. Look, the roe is oozing out, come and eat it. Nora held the hairy crab and beckoned me over. When it came to eating, it was still my best friend who was good at choosing. The crab she picked was really fat, with a lot of roe, and the meat was sweet, fresh, and firm. We were enjoying our meal. Suddenly, there was a commotion in the opposite community. First, there was the sound of kicking the door, and then there were women's cries. What are you doing? You can't do this. What are you doing? Let me go. 10. My best friend and I both ran to the balcony spontaneously to find out what was going on. We were not far from the opposite building, and we could clearly see what was happening inside, but I'm nearsighted. I could only vaguely see that 3 people had broken into the home of a single girl. At this moment, one person was holding the girl down while the other 2 were rummaging through the cabinets. It seemed that they had found some food, and the 3 of them pounced on it like hungry wolves. I think these 3 people look really familiar. Nora squinted her eyes. They seem to be your mother, your father, and your brother. I was shocked. They really were robbing someone else. I found a telescope and looked over. Opposite, my mother and the other 2 were gathered around the pot, their eyes glowing with greed as they stared at the thick soup in the pot. Perhaps they were too hungry. And my brother even started reaching out to grab the food directly. My mother seemed not to have eaten enough and wanted to take another bite, but my brother pushed her away. I'm not full yet. My mother stumbled and fell to the ground, hitting her head on the corner of the table, and blood gushed out, but my brother and my father were too busy grabbing the food to pay any attention to her. Tisk, how did they get so hungry? Nora clicked her tongue in surprise. I wasn't really surprised. My brother was lazy and gluttonous, and my parents were cowardly and afraid of death. They would never take the risk to buy rice, flour, cooking oil, and other supplies. Moreover, they didn't have a good reputation. They had a feud with Will from the supermarket in the east end of the village, and Will would never sell anything to them. That's why they were left with no choice but to take the risk of going out to rob others for food. Once they set the example, other people in the village who were out of food also started to search for food everywhere. Just like in my previous life, the village once again descended into a hell even more terrifying than the presence of zombies. Often in the middle of the night, there would be sounds of smashing and breaking. Many men even took advantage of the chaos to have evil intentions towards girls. No, don't touch me. I'll give you all my food. Please let me go. Okay. While I was lost in thought, cries came from the balcony of the floor where Charlie was robbing someone. Please, I want the food. And I want you too. On this day, after Charlie had eaten his fill, he started to be lustful. He dragged the girl to the balcony and his hands began to restlessly tear at the girl's clothes. Damn it, your brother is just as much of a scumbag as he was in the previous life. Looking at the girl being bullied across the way, Nora was so angry that she was shaking. She was completely agitated and grabbed a baseball bat and threw it at Charlie across the way. You bastard, in my previous life, my brother had also brutally forced himself on Nora like this. I had once tried to protect Nora, but my parents held me down on the ground and beat me until my head was bleeding and I passed out. Precisely because we had experienced such darkness. We couldn't bear to see any girl go through the same hell that we had endured. Nora's eyes were burning red, like a madwoman. She grabbed a water cup from the table and threw it over, but this commotion only made Charlie more excited. He deliberately dragged the girl towards our side, provocatively stuck up his middle finger, and then was about to reach out and tear the girl's clothes. Damn it! Before Nora could finish her sentence, I had already found a weapon. I drew the bow and set the arrow, all in one smooth motion. The next second, the arrow pierced Charlie's shoulder with a swish. The person in question howled in pain. Nina, you bitch. Nora was stunned for a moment and then gave me a thumbs up. Sister, that's awesome. 11. Nina, you little slut. How dare you shoot me with an arrow? Just you wait, if I don't kill you, I'm a bastard." Charlie looked at his bleeding arm and angrily cursed at us. That mouth, it stank so much, without hesitation. I raised my hand and shot another arrow at that scoundrel. This arrow directly pierced through Charlie's crotch. His face turned deathly pale with fright, and he immediately shut his mouth. I was about to shoot him another arrow and send him to his doom. Seeing that the situation was bad, Charlie scrambled and crawled into the bedroom, just as my best friend and I were disappointed that we hadn't managed to kill that bastard Charlie. Suddenly a group of people burst in. "Boss, there's food here. And there's also a woman, hee." One of the men looked at the thick soup on the table and my mother, and sneered. Hearing this familiar voice, my best friend and I exchanged a look and knew the answer in our hearts. This was Hunter and his gang. In my previous life, after the zombie outbreak, the gang of hooligans, relying on their tall and strong stature and their ability to modify weapons, started to do all kinds of evil deeds. At first, they just robbed for food in the neighboring village. And later they came to our village. They would rob whatever they saw, and if anyone resisted, they would kill them. This was going to be interesting. That bastard Charlie had run into someone tough. I wanted to see how he would manage to survive. "What are you doing? This is my stuff." Charlie, who had no memories of his previous life, pounced forward trying to protect his thick soup, but was kicked flying by one of Hunter's men. That kick was very hard. Charlie flew 2 meters away and spat out blood when he landed on the ground, but even so, Hunter's gang still showed no mercy and surrounded him and started punching and kicking him. Charlie howled in pain. "Don't hit my son, don't hit my son." My mother almost cried as she pounced forward and shielded Charlie under her body. "I'll give you the food, just take it, that's more like it." Upon hearing this, the group of people stopped, after they ransacked all the food and drinks. Charlie dared to look up. He was black and blue all over, and one of his teeth was missing. A 30-year-old man was hugging my mother and wailing. As expected, only the wicked can be punished by the more wicked. Nora laughed until tears came out. Although I felt satisfied seeing Charlie in such a sorry state, I couldn't really laugh. It wasn't because I still had any familial feelings for him. It was because of Hunter and his gang of bastards, in my previous life. Ever since they came to our village had fallen into an even deeper hell. At first, they just robbed for food. Later, these people got bolder. They robbed the supermarket in the east end of the village and deliberately jacked up the prices. A piece of bread cost 2,000 yuan. A bottle of water cost 1,500 yuan. On the 60th day after the zombie outbreak, when their supplies were also running out, these beasts started to go from house to house, burning, killing, and robbing for food. And even capturing some women for their own pleasure. These people were more terrifying than the zombies. 12. After Hunter and his gang left, the girl on the balcony also took the opportunity to run to another floor. After this incident, Charlie became much more obedient. He didn't dare to move for several days. Because of the kick from Hunter's gang, his lumbar vertebra was fractured and he couldn't move. Although Charlie was subdued, the village didn't become peaceful because of that. Instead, because of Hunter and his group, the village was completely plunged into a dire situation. They monopolized the supermarket and the pharmacy and jacked up the prices. There were complaints everywhere. Too many people in the village were out of water and food and started eating tree bark. One day, a message suddenly popped up in the village group chat. "Does anyone have any antipyretics? My child has a high fever and won't come down. Hunter and his gang are asking us for 10,000 yuan for one pill. We've already given them the money, but they won't give us the medicine. They even told us that one less person means one less person competing for food. Please, everyone, does anyone have any medicine to spare? Can you lend me some?" The message was sent by a young couple next door to my house. They had just given birth to a child and came back to the village to recuperate after childbirth, and they were trapped here. But no matter what they said, no one in the group chat replied. Half of the reason was that many people had died, and the other half was that no one would reveal their stockpiled supplies, for fear of being robbed by Hunter and his gang. "Please, I'm begging you, save my child." Seeing that no one replied, the child's mother almost sobbed as she sent a voice message, but no matter how much she pleaded, there was still no response. My best friend and I also didn't dare to reply. We definitely couldn't be the one to stand out at this time. But my best friend and I weren't heartless people who would turn a blind eye to someone in need. After all, we were all neighbors. The guy next door had once taught Charlie a lesson for me when he saw Charlie bullying me. Putting down the phone, I used a drone to send over some antipyretics, cold medicine, and anti-inflammatory drugs. Thank you. When he received the medicine, the guy next door had red eyes. Then he took out 2 duck eggs from his pocket, put them in a bag, and hung them on the drone to send them back to me. Looking at the 2 duck eggs, my best friend and I were deeply touched. In these chaotic times when food was so scarce, they had given us 2 duck eggs. It seemed that not everyone was bad. My best friend and I never spoke in the group chat. But whenever we saw someone asking for help, we would still choose to use the drone to send them the things they needed. However, we didn't dare to send them during the day. We always chose to do it at around 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. Otherwise, if we were discovered by Hunter and his gang, my best friend and I would become the target of public criticism. In the following days, my best friend and I became more and more cautious. We didn't even dare to extract the cooking fumes when cooking. In times of famine, even the slightest aroma could attract others' attention. When we ate barbecued meat, we closed the windows tightly. We even had to eat hot pot in the air raid shelter, eating luocefen. This had become the only thing we dared to eat openly. 13. During these days, my best friend and I didn't starve to the point of eating dirt like in my previous life. Instead, we gained a little weight, about 1 or 2 pounds. The piglet was even more exaggerated. In just over a month, it kept growing bigger and bigger. Nina, our son has been fed so well by me. Nora stroked the pig's head with a proud look on her face. It is really good. Keep it up. Try to fatten it up more. It's still a bit thin now. If we slaughtered it now, it wouldn't last us many meals. Thinking of this, I silently took out my pig-killing knife and found a stone to secretly sharpen it. We couldn't wait until we needed it to start sharpening the knife. Bang! Suddenly, a loud noise rang out in the silent village. My best friend and I suddenly looked up. We saw that Hunter and his gang were driving a modified car and crushed a group of zombies to death. Because of this crazy move, the other zombies didn't dare to act rashly. Hunter climbed onto the roof of the car and shouted into the village with a megaphone. Those who are still alive, hand over your food voluntarily, and I'll be kind enough to give you a little. But if my brothers find out that you've been hoarding food, don't blame me for being ruthless. As he spoke, Hunter's face darkened, and he swept his gaze wildly through the air, showing his power. Then Hunter said again, of course, if anyone is willing to join us and report which households have stockpiled food, we'll split the looted items equally. Hunter really knew how to manipulate people's minds. He had mastered the art of coercion and inducement. At this moment, people were so desperate with hunger that they might very well join him and collaborate with evil for the sake of survival. The first one to jump out was my brother, Charlie. I want to join you. 14. When Charlie, who was so hungry that he was nothing but skin and bones, ran out, he could barely stand. As long as you give me something to eat, I'll tell you which households have stockpiled supplies and how many households are still alive. I can even call my mother out for you guys to have fun with. Charlie, are you even human? My mother heard this and slapped her thigh and cursed angrily upstairs, but Charlie turned a deaf ear. He staggered like a dog and crawled at Hunter's feet. Boss, give me a piece of biscuit. Once I have the strength after eating it, I'll immediately take you to loot things. I know of a household. They definitely have a lot of supplies stored. They haven't asked for help in the village these days. And I've also heard that when someone asks for help in the village these days, someone will secretly send things over at night. It shows how abundant their food supplies are. Let's rush over and take the things away later. And there are women in there, fresh and pretty. My brothers will definitely like them. Hearing this, my best friend and I couldn't wait to strangle Charlie to death. It was obvious that he was talking about us. That damned scumbag. We shouldn't have spared his life that night. Now, for a piece of food, he's become a dog for others and is causing trouble for us and the villagers. Nora was so angry that her hands clenched tightly, and she wanted to beat this inhuman thing to death. I also regretted it. Why hadn't I been quicker that night and shot an arrow through that scoundrel's heart? I've run out of biscuits. Now, tell me, which household in the village has the most stockpiled food? While my best friend and I were lost in thought, Hunter's sinister laugh came from outside. Charlie licked the crumbs of the biscuit on his fingers and turned his head to look in our direction. My best friend and I instinctively gripped the bows and arrows in our hands tightly. They are. Just as Charlie was about to point in our direction, I shot an arrow over. It's better to strike first than to be at the mercy of others. Bang! The leader, Hunter, fell off the armored vehicle. Hunter covered his chest, his face turning pale, cold sweat breaking out on his forehead, and he was in great pain. Boss, boss. When Hunter's subordinates saw this, they rushed forward to support him, and some people took out guns and fired back at us. Bullets shot towards my best friend and me. My best friend and I were so scared that our hearts were pounding wildly. Fortunately, they were all firmly blocked outside by the bulletproof glass windows. They actually installed bulletproof glass. We can't hit them at all. Now we can only ram the door. There was another commotion downstairs. My best friend and I quickly came to our senses and immediately used a drone to spray strong sulfuric acid and a large amount of alcohol at them. Although this group of people shot down the drone, the sulfuric acid splashed on their skin, burning their eyes and hands. A group of men howled in pain, and I controlled another drone and dropped an open flame. Boom! Suddenly, this group of men were engulfed in a sea of fire, and cries of pain filled the air. My best friend and I were about to follow up on our victory, but suddenly several remaining men in the village rushed out. Brothers, we can't let these people bully these two girls. 15. My best friend and I were very surprised that the villagers came out to help, while we were still in a daze. The wife of the guy next door waved her hand to signal us to relax. You helped us. We won't let you get into danger. My best friend and I then realized that the group of people who rushed out were all those we had helped before. Looking at the kitchen knives and shovels in their hands, it seemed that they had been prepared for a long time. As soon as these desperate people dared to break down our door, they would rush over and fight them to the death. In this apocalypse, feeling such warmth, my best friend and I suddenly felt a warmth in our hearts. Soon, the villagers beat Hunter and his gang black and blue. Cries of pain came one after another in the village. Charlie was also among those being beaten. The one who beat him the hardest was my mother. She slapped his mouth one after another. You ungrateful wretch. You don't deserve to be a human being. You sold your mother for a piece of biscuit. Mom, uncles. Stop hitting me. I was wrong. Charlie's words were slurred because of the pain. Even Hunter, who had been tyrannical for a month, couldn't help but kneel down and beg for mercy. Stop hitting me. Stop hitting me. I was wrong. I'll never dare again. But people sneered at him. Beast, you deserve this day. Humph. When you were robbing food and harassing the women in the village, why didn't you say you were wrong? Hunter and his gang had committed heinous crimes, and the villagers hated them to the core. People wished they could each give them a kick and beat them to death, but after all, everyone was a simple farmer, and no one had the heart to do it. After taking away their guns, gunpowder, and food, they ignored this group of people. Without the things to intimidate others, this group of people didn't dare to stay in the village anymore and drove out of the village. After driving away these evil people, the villagers also heaved a sigh of relief. My best friend and I also heaved a sigh of relief. 16. Charlie completely broke off with my mother. My mother no longer shared the food she found with Charlie. She would also often stand across the way and look in our direction. Sometimes she even tried to please me by offering an egg, but I ignored her every time. On the 99th day of the apocalypse, there came some good news. The communication was restored. The news reported that scientists had found out the cause of the zombie outbreak. It turned out that a dog carrying the virus in a laboratory had run out. This dog bit someone, and that person was infected with the virus and turned into a zombie. Now the country was developing an antidote. Not only that, soon our village received official airdrop supplies. These included water, food, and medicine. The villagers were extremely excited when they saw these supplies. The young man and woman next door were even more tearful with joy. My best friend, Nora, and I were also crying our eyes out. On the 100th day of the apocalypse, we finally ushered in the light. 1 year after the apocalypse, this scene, these words, I returned to the hospital to continue working, while Nora opened a pet store. Her eldest son, well, we successfully ate it, because the pig just kept growing bigger and bigger. We realized that we had been deceived. This wasn't a pet pig at all. It was a domestic pig. In the end, it reached 200 gene. Our home simply couldn't accommodate it anymore, so Nora reluctantly sent it to the grill. My brother was disliked by the villagers because he had betrayed them. He left and never came back. As for my father and mother, they would buy a cake for me every year on my birthday, but I always refused to accept it. Some things, once they're broken, are broken, they can't be pieced back together.